in that group that I was with in the study abroad, in the midst of me trying to get to know my dad's story and stuff like that, there were two individuals that were Patrick and Cam that were in my study cohort, and there they are doing pour overs.
Oh,
and I'm just like, hey, what is that? You know? And they're just telling me the art of third wave coffee, and they're telling me about, like, you know, why they do it the way they're doing it. Because I only grew up with Café Bustelo. I only grew up with, like, you know, Folgers and just really sweet coffee in a traditional Mexican household. And then they, like, I start hanging out with them because they like to go every morning to, like, local coffee shops and try to taste the coffee. And that was kind of like
this was still in Bolivia?
Yeah, that's my junior year.
Wow.
And then, so these are like little seeds of what I'm doing now. And
I Am Consciously Curious, a podcast for those that are searching for meaning and fulfillment in their lives. My name is Victor Chan, and I'm on a mission to find out why people do what they do. I've interviewed white collar to blue collar, entrepreneurs to passion projects, and life is just too short to not produce meaningful work. Thanks for tuning in. We're live. Hello, everyone. We have Raoul Adwan from Third Coffee.
It is a pleasure to be
Wow.
here.
Tasty coffee.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm sorry I don't venture up to the north side too often. I miss the north side at times, and when I am there, I try to make my rounds. I'm not huge into the coffee scene, but I'm late to the third coffee. I'm late to the game.
No, it's okay.
Would you consider how old are you now? Because 2020 is when Third Coffee got started.
That's right. I was 26 when I first started it, and now I'm 31.
Welcome to your third decade.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's so far it gets better every decade.
I know. More gray hairs. More gray hairs.
I listened to your episode with Keys to the Shop, and it was a wonderful episode. It was my first time listening to that show, and he was a good host, and you were a great guest. And what I got from that episode was you're very eloquent, you're very well spoken, and you can palpate the ambition that you have. But I find I resonate with that of I'm a big dreamer, and my co-founder with the EMT business usually grounds me and brings me back to reality.
That's good.
But how you differ to me is you're very intentional, and you try to break it down into, let's say, a business plan. And you're very, as I try to be, transparent with your team, and you check in with them on a consistent basis. So I really admired how well thought out you are with short-term and long-term goals, and you toe that line between. I cringe at the hustle mentality, but as a entrepreneur, as well as remaining grounded in the relationships that lead us to where we are.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
And so tell me, if you were to wind the clock back, it could be your first barista job, or the first moment where you thought this magical elixir is giving you life, your first exposure to coffee. Wherever you want to start, I'm happy to start there.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it's awesome to be here, and to hear amazing stories that have been here, and awesome people that are doing amazing things in Chicago. Mm-hmm. I love that. I'm a part of that too, and so it's a beautiful thing. So kudos to everyone who's been on this podcast.
As a comment to that, it's just when did you start maybe it was when you ventured on this entrepreneurial journey, but Steph Krim from Good Things Vending said this. It's there was a point when she realized and saw this fabric of the city, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful how collaborative this multi-industry kind of commerce type vehicle that we have in Chicago.
Oh yeah, Listen, I am a huge Chicago diehard Chicagoan. You know, I love it. It's bread and butter. My dad was a CTA bus driver.
Wow.
My mom used to work in like the office spaces, a lot of administrative tasks. My dad never gave me any free bus rides, so I'm a little bit, you know, what's up with that, man? What's up with that? But my dad was dispatched out in like in the Uptown Rogers Park area. I grew up mostly near Bryant Park, Archer Heights, 56th and Pulaski. And so I love the city. You know, there was a point in my life where I didn't think I wanted to come back to Chicago when I went to college in Michigan. I just was like, man, I think I want to change it up. I grew up here all my life. I'm a product of CPS. I just was like, maybe I'll just, you know, just look in Grand Rapids of some sort or something like that. But the job brought me back here. And when I came back to Chicago, man, I was so wrong. You know, I re-fell in love with the city.
This homecoming.
Yeah, I just was like, okay, great. There's like, there were neighborhoods that I wasn't exposed to, of course, because I was younger. River North, I was exposed to, you know, Wicker Park, Bucktown, Logan Square, and all these fun shops. And so over time, I fell in love with the city. I love what it brings. The flaws of it, I think it is through our community. It's through our people that really tries to help to bring back what Chicago once was, and try to steer away from all the mess of what we see on the news. And we try to, I believe that it starts with small businesses. Small businesses is the key foundation to really turning the wheel of a neighborhood. And so for me, entrepreneurship was always a big thing in my family. It started from my grandpa doing garage sales in his neighborhood.
Wow. Also Chicago?
Yeah, in the same. I grew up with my grandparents most of my time. Okay. And then secondly, my uncle Louis, passed away back in 2006. Rest in peace. He was an ice cream truck driver. So he had, you know, from when I grew up, when I was a kid, I would get on the ice cream truck with him and he'd be riding around. But I've had my cousins who've experienced it firsthand, especially my cousins who are his kids. And so,
you experienced that, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into operating a business.
Not to that degree. I was just seeing the product. I ate my ice cream and called it a day, but I didn't see the grind from what it looked like from behind the scenes.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't really that exposed to it.
But like after a full days of work, driving around neighborhoods, selling ice cream, making people happy, like, how did your uncle? Was that satisfying for them, or was it still a struggle to make ends meet? I don't know what the margins are on ice cream, but it's like, was it? I'm sure you were exposed to the struggle of it.
No, you know, I was 7. And I personally, I don't remember quite much about the struggles. All I do know was that there was a moment where he did really well, that he had multiple trucks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then eventually he went back down to 1.
Okay.
So, but, you know, now knowing prices are at all-time high now than back in the 90s, late 80s, I can't imagine how things were back in the day. And so did I get the chance to see everything firsthand of like the struggle? No. But what I did see was an entrepreneur's ambition. What I did see was someone's motivation of consistently going out there and, you know, driving the truck during the summertime, bringing his kids onto the truck. And so I admired that. I believe that, you know, and then over time, as I got older, I started, you know, thinking about like, oh, hey, what if I would say it in conversation with family. I'm like, man, I remember one time I was at a stadium, I was at a soccer field, and it was so dumb. I was just like, man, there's nowhere to sit, you know? And I saw a gate, and I was like, what if we created a belt where you can hang onto the gate and you created your own seat?
Damn.
You know, it was like, you know. And so over time, I had words of affirmation from my loved ones. Shout out to my aunts who really poured into me, and they told me, hey, you know, you'll start your own business one day. And I said, I don't know. And then as I got older, I fell in love with shows like Shark Tank. I fell in love with shows like Bar Rescue, where people would where experts would come into a business and they try to sharpen it up you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was going to be like foreshadows of what I'm doing now. When I came into school, I just had a hard time at school. I flunked 6th grade. That's a fun fact.
You can flunk 6th grade?
Yeah.
What did you not do? What happened?
Show up.
Where would you go?
Man, I would remember Game Crazy?
No?
Okay, so it was competitors to GameStop.
Okay.
And they were also competitors with Hollywood. They would collaborate with Hollywood Video.
Okay.
Versus where there's Blockbuster.
Interesting.
So I would walk towards school, take a detour, and then just hang out at the Game Crazy, which was kind of like a GameStop, and I would just play video games over there. And the guys that were working there were like, "Don't you have to go to school?" And I was like, "No, we're off today. So I just want to play some games."
And you kept this up for a year?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did.
At what point did your teachers check in with your parents?
So my parents weren't really in my life. That's a whole story.
Oh, okay.
But the thing about it was, the family counselor would pull me aside, and they would be like, "Hey, what happened?" And I remember I would have to pretend like I'm bruising myself and be like, "I got sick. Like, this is what happened. You know, I had
What kind of sick?
I don't know. That was what they would respond.
I know, but were they thinking someone was abusing you then?
You know, at the time, I'm pretty sure that was the case. I didn't care. You know, I was trying to find out any reason to not show up. And I was like, even the more that they got more suspicious, the more my lies would get worse. You know?
Okay.
And so there came a point where I had to get picked up by my aunts. At the time when I was younger, there was a strict aunt of mine.
Yeah.
And she pulled me aside. She's like, "You're going to live with me and you're going to learn how to work in school and get back into your rhythm."
I'm sure your grandparents tried.
Yeah, absolutely. My grandparents were just like oblivious. I think they were just like focused on like other things. And my mom, you know, she came in and out of my life a lot throughout the times. And now, thankfully, we have a really good relationship. But it was around that time where we ended up. She was also in the picture around that time, and she was very oblivious, and she didn't really care. And so for myself, I think it was when I started going back to my aunt's house, and then it was those things of when they were like telling me, "Hey, you can do this. Like, really put yourself forward. Really work hard in school. You know, try to. You should start your own business one day." And I think that's when all these things came around, and I just started realizing, I'm like, okay, maybe there is something here, right? And so I went into college years later. I finally get back into school. I'm doing really well, class president, you know, honor roll, all that stuff, right? I get to, I go to college. I'm really, apparently I majored in communication.
Wait. Let's slow down. So wait, high school, you worked your way up to honor roll and class president?
Yeah.
From flunking out of 6th grade.
Yeah, I had to repeat 6th grade.
That is so 180, so drastic.
Yeah.
So what's tough is who became. Did your aunt become that role model for you? And it was that easy to switch your rebelliousness to your limbo-ness to some sense of direction?
Yeah, you know, I would say it started with my aunt.
Wow.
And then eventually I have 2 older sisters. They started playing a role in my life. I had my uncles that stepped in as a father and just really try to help me learn what is it like to be, you know, someone who likes to volunteer in community spaces and or pursue education, pursue a career. Had different men in my life that were able to talk to me in these things. And so it was a privilege. And I think over time, that's when I made the switch.
Yeah.
It was that 6th grade year, I went from Hurley Elementary, which was a public school on the south side, and then I went to Queen of the Universe, which was next door, and it was a private Catholic school.
Wow.
And I just was like, man, I don't want to be here. Like, why am I here?
So they just put you didn't have to test into that? Like, how did you get into that?
So I don't know how. This was literally
pulling some strings.
I don't know. All I know is that I had a meeting with the principal, and the principal sat me down, and I think at that time I knew how to talk my way out of things. So she knew, like, okay, you're a really nice kid. You know how to, you speak really well, but I know according to your grades, you're failing and you have all these like demerits, history log. And she said, I'm going to give you 2 choices. Either you come to the school and you repeat 6th grade, or you don't, and we'll just probably have to look into you for next year potentially. And then I remember that same day, I didn't give her a yes or no. I didn't tell her my decision. I went back home, and my family had to like sit me down, and they were like telling me like, this is what's important for you to make this decision, and I was what, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
So I was like,
you didn't care about that.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
But something snapped in me where I was like, okay, I can see the benefits of this. Okay, I'll give it a shot. And I did my second year in 6th grade, and I said, yeah, I'll reapply. I'll do this again. And it was a blessing in disguise, because it was the turning point where I did a lot of growth and maturity at that age. And so, yeah.
I feel like a lot of people come into themselves in their mid-20s when they finally realize what they might want to do with their life. What a blessing to realize that so much earlier, despite the rocky road that you had leading up to that. You make it sound easy. I'm sure it wasn't easy, and
right.
we have I think that's a problem that we currently have with our youth. And it's like, how do we speak their language? How do we show them a path that they might be interested in?
Yeah.
So they can, kind of just stay on a path, essentially.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's what has made me a little bit sensitive to a lot of like the next generation of kids that are in high school or in middle school, and they're byproduct of CPS, and they're trying to figure their way out. I always love to try to, give back when we can. We just gave back to this school called the Field School. It's a charter, I believe, or a private institution where they're in the Austin neighborhood, and they give opportunities of kids that are in the nearby Austin neighborhood to go to the school, get a really great education. Alongside that, they bring in families from different neighborhoods, and they're able to speak on like their spiritual walk. They're able to create their own curriculum, and it's a very I've gone and visited the school, met the principal, met some amazing people, and got to see what their mission is and their values are, and I loved it, and resonated with me. And the cool thing is that their tuition is a percentage of their family household income.
Oh wow!
So everybody's different based off, but majority of the student body is from the neighborhood. They're doing so well that they're actually expanding another building next door. They're taking over the next school. So I think that was a perfect example of me just being like, okay, great. Like, man, I love education. I love like the kids that are coming from the city and trying to stay in the Chicago area, and so I have a whole thing with gentrification, but at the end of the day, I really I have a soft spot for inner city kids.
Families leave the city for better education.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it's going to take for public education in Chicago to change.
100%. I learned real quick. Sorry about jumping back and forth, but before I went into the coffee industry, I did dabble into teaching. I was working at my alma mater high school as an alumni coordinator, and I realized real quick, the teaching as a teacher, I'm cut from a different cloth. So I ended up reverting back into small local businesses. But again, when we're in a place of opportunity where we're able to go and, just give back where we can, that's ideal.
Yeah, give it up to the educators. Like the amount of patience they have, like it's crazy to be able to see, and I guess entrepreneurs have it as well, but like the ability to see potential in a space or a person. When you're bringing on a team and you're curating a team,
Absolutely.
You see this untapped potential.
Absolutely.
Despite how tumultuous this child, their journey could have been, it's like they don't give up.
Yeah. No, I think so. If we take a step back and I start working back in school and I'm doing the things I need to do. I'm trying to get into honor roll. I'm getting into student council. My personality starts blossoming. I'm able to be a little bit more out there. And then I started looking into high schools. High school is tricky. It was at a time where private schools were getting expensive. And the Ivy League schools, I was really bad in tests, but I was good in just keeping my grades up. Just tests were not the best for me. And so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make it to any of the Ivy League schools, Whitney Young, Northside, Walter Payton, Lane Tech, any of those guys. So, at the time, there was a rise of charter schools. And so my family looked into it. My older sister was the one that started kind of like stepping in and really taking on the horns of what a mom is. And so my older sister was the one that was applying.
For you or for her?
No, for her.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
for me. Just
Okay.
like, hey, like this is Raoul, like, you know.
How much older?
She's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
So now she's 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Kudos.
Yeah.
Kudos to her.
Yeah. We'll cut the age out. No, I'm joking. But like I was saying, so I go to UIC College Prep on Damon and Roosevelt. It's
Yeah.
actually not too far away from here.
Wow.
Yeah. And fun fact, I'm going there in a month or so, because we're going to be offering coffee services to the staff there.
Oh.
So I put a joke out there. I said, well, hey, you know, like I closed the deal with my own high school. Time to get back the money that I had to pay for detention. So that was kind of cool doing that.
But what if the students start speaking on that?
I'm sorry?
What if the students start you hear whispers of like, have you heard of Raoul? Raoul used to spend detention here. It's like,
yeah, no, it's just,
and now he's like the successful entrepreneur.
yeah, no, it's so funny. It's just it's so funny how things come in full circle, and so I went to UIC College Prep, and I had a great time there. I didn't really dabble into making any business or anything like that. I just try to get good grades and go to school to a 4-year education, because I was going to be the first out of my other two siblings to actually finish school all the way through.
Wait, so then what did your sister do?
Lizzie, the oldest one, she's an event coordinator at the Italian Village in downtown, and she stayed in hospitality for most of her time.
Okay.
You know, and then
but no college.
She attempted to. You know, and I guess financially straining,
Sure.
couldn't complete it all the way through. And I think that, you know, kudos to her though, because she sacrificed a lot.
Yeah,
She did
not
so
that
much though.
college is necessary to be successful. You
Right.
just said you'd be the first one. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your sister was looking out for you and was setting you up for success. It's just, I was wondering what she ended up doing.
No, yeah. So now she's an event coordinator, and she
Okay.
also she has property in Garfield Park. So she's doing her own explorations in that. And then my middle sister lives in Naperville. She sold out to Chicago. I'm just joking. She's married, settled down. She has 2 lovely kids. Shout out to Joe and Leah. And she went to school, took a break, went back to school, got cosmetology license, and now she cuts hair in the Naperville area. So she has her own clientele.
Yeah.
It's good. And so, so my sisters did a lot. You know, they worked through it. They had to persevere, and I admire them, because I mean, it's just a different path.
In a way, like as a parent does, which is the role that they might have helped fill, you have to sacrifice your own kind of journey for the success of the family.
Yeah. I don't know. I was just kind of like taken back. When I look back at this journey, I'm like, sheesh, this is good. This is crazy. Thankful.
Was there a group of individuals or a person or a club or an activity that helped you gain some confidence or like come into your own?
You know, man, so I grew up in a church home, and so with my grandparents, and I think it was just through youth group. It was going through church that really helped develop my way of like looking at the positives, and being able to really, I think there I found a lot of mentorship. One of my uncles is a pastor. I have another uncle who's doing very well in the corporate space, and they both really poured into me on 2 sides that I truly believe is what really makes me who I am. And so I think that everything was just in timing, and just seeing amazing people that just really spoke into me. It was really beautiful, and it was an awesome thing. Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, honor roll and class president, like, did you also have an idea of like what you might want college to look like?
So my senior year of high school, a really impactful thing that really happened to me was my grandpa, who was my real, like, honestly, my dad practically, because he really stepped in there and really got to see what it looked like to be a family man. And he unfortunately passed away my senior year. He got diagnosed with cancer freshman year of high school for me, and then the doctor said that he wasn't going to make it for, like, it was going to be 2-3 months, but thankfully he was able to live and have a blessed few years after that. And so senior year, that happened. I think for myself, it was kind of like a turning point of like, man, I really want to learn how to become half the man that he is. And so some part of me just felt like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so I never was really a follower in high school. And I was always a drifter, always had different pocket of friends.
Same, yeah.
And I just was like, cool, like, I don't want to, follow the crowd. And if you want to hang with me, that's cool. Let's do something there. But he really taught me what it looks like, how to be humble and all these things, and really trying to, stay grounded. And so at that time, I was really very passionate about my faith, very involved in a lot of like community service and community outreach. And I think it was I was talking to my college counselor, and I said, hey, like, I don't know if I want to go to a public university. I don't want to, I think I've been experienced to a lot of public education. I really want to be a part of a school that really focuses on your faith. Recommended me to Hope College in Holland, Michigan. It's a small liberal arts Christian college, and ended up going there. And it was a huge blessing.
Did you consider any of the local ones?
So local schools, I mean, our school was mandatory to apply to 10 schools.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like for college prep, but they would cover,
Sure.
They would waiver the application fee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's expensive. That's okay. Wow.
So that was the beauty about this at the time of charter school. So UIC College, got accepted there. I think I got accepted to eight schools. The only two that I remember I didn't get accepted to was TCU and Wheaton. And so I just was like, all right, man. And funny enough, Wheaton was considered like it was like the Christian Harvard school. And I was like, man, I really want to check this out. I really want to go.
Wheaton in Illinois, like the
Wheaton,
suburb?
Illinois.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Wheaton College. And I didn't get accepted. So I was like, nah, man, that is what it is.
What about Loyola?
I didn't apply to Loyola.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I wanted to try to. The school required us to apply to like 3 reach schools and 3 nearby schools that were in the neighborhood. And so I was like, okay, I was changing it up, but I personally wanted to leave Chicago.
Okay, so there was that component.
Yeah.
Loyola, when I applied, was the only one that was Jesuit and was considered faith as part of your curriculum.
Yeah. I have a few friends that went to Loyola, and I heard nothing but good things, especially in the medical space.
Okay.
But
what part of you wanted to leave?
I wanted to change.
Did you have family in Michigan?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know at the time it was going to be Michigan. I just was man, I want to go somewhere that's completely different than the city.
I see.
And I really just want to like experience this freedom.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too far where it's going to take me 1 to 2 days to get back. So I want to be somewhere far, but a little bit close too.
Okay.
And it just so happens that Michigan at Holland was just a good sweet spot. It was a good solid 3 hours.
Yeah.
Technically 2 with the hour change, but so then I went to Hope and I loved it. It was great. It was really great learning experience. I grew a lot in my knowledge and self-awareness of culture and my faith, and also just like school stuff, and it was awesome.
Is that through like what you were reading or the extracurriculars? What fueled that? What cultivated that?
To go to Hope?
No. Once you were at Hope, it strengthened your personality, or just like who you are as a person? So
my freshman year, I think I was very like I said, I was a drifter. I had different pockets of friends, and my sophomore year, I kind of started feeling a little homesick. And I was like, man, I never thought that this was going to happen to me. You know, as a big personality as I am, as very optimistic as I can be, I never thought that homesick would affect me, but it did. You know, especially I started looking in terms of my ethnicity. You know, Hope College was a predominantly white school, so I'm like, man, I'm minority owned, and I'm minority myself, and I'm like, man, there's not a lot of people that look like me.
Were you still considered drifting, or did you have a core group of friends at that point?
Sophomore year, I started having my core group of friends.
And this is after you felt homesick?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So I just gave it another try. I was close to putting out my transcripts to say, you know, I think I'm going to come back, or I learned my lesson. I don't know if this is what I want, but I don't know. I ended up getting I was an RA.
You were an RA? I was an RA too.
Hey, let's go. RAs. Let's get it. Is that alcohol?
I got fired after 3 months.
No way.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh God. I was, well, I taught him a lot of bad habits. You know, we did like hookah homework sessions, and it was not good. But it was a noise complaint, and I crossed the line between RA, like that professionalism, and being too friendly with the residents, and just unprofessionalism. It's a lesson you that was so severe, obviously being fired and having to move back home and with my parents, and it's like you give up this free housing, free food, and that's all taken away from you. And I learned my lesson, and it's just like, yeah, there are these lines that you shouldn't be crossing.
Yeah, I for myself, I was, I don't know. I think I just had like this like leader thing. Someone said it really well, and it resonated with me. Was that leadership is like a backpack. You always have to have it on you wherever you're at, especially when it's uncomfortable. Of course, there's times where you can just relax, be yourself and stuff like that. But when you have this kind of, set an example, that was ingrained to me. I don't know where, I don't know why, I don't know any of that. But all I know was that by sophomore year, I was like, okay, cool. I'm an RA. I'm put in some type of leadership of a dorm. I think I'm going to stay another year. And in that, I ended up growing some really awesome close friends.
Yeah. Were these friends other RAs, or?
No, it was actually through just like within my dorm of my freshman year. And then I think they all were like hanging out with other RAs. And then they were like, oh, Raoul's an RA. And then I don't know, it was just like cool RA, cool crew.
Yeah.
And so I still stay in touch with all these close friends of mine after over 7+ years, I believe. And it's just been really awesome. They really kept me grounded. I'm a sponge when I'm around the close people that I put myself around. Like, I just want to learn from them. I want to be, I'm like, man, how can I be, just as grounded as you, or just as, I want to learn from you type of thing. Right. And so, and that in Hope, I was going in, I applied as a communications major, took public speaking, did the podcasting, did the videography, did the photography.
They had a podcasting class?
They had like a podcasting.
That's cool.
Yeah. And there was a radio, and I wanted to be on radio.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think I was very ambitious. So I was like, I scaled it down.
Wow.
And I'm just going to stick with, certain things. My junior year, and this is where we get into the coffee, I study abroad.
Okay.
My dad and I didn't really have a really close relationship. I wanted to learn more about his part of his culture. He's born and raised in Bolivia, Cochabamba, Oruro in Bolivia. And so I applied to study abroad over there and learn my dad's side of the family. And wow, that was just like, it blew my mind about a lot of his upbringing.
So what was that relationship like? Because if one's parent is not in their life, there's really no curiosity about their backstory. But so there was some level of positivity through that relationship? Yeah,
I think my upbringing, and this is it may sound a little weird, but I grew up with like this idea of like, in going to church, you learn how to like honor your mom, honor your dad. And there was a time when I was a kid where I obviously had like those hard battles, and I had a hard time to forgive. And I now understand everyone's journey is different. And personally for me, I just had a soft spot of like my dad, because it was somebody that I wanted to get to know. And unfortunately, it was never there. And so I was able to find that sort of fulfillment through a lot of my relationships with my uncles and my grandpa. But I was always curious. I'm like, man, I wonder how this guy, and then I would watch movies where there's like a son and dad relationship, or it's Father's Day and it gets a little weird. And I'm just like,
why don't I have that?
There was a moment of that.
Were your grandparents on your dad's side or mom's side that you were living with?
My grandparents were on my mom's side.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I had no connections with anything on my dad.
So how did you get connected?
So my dad, through you, are you talking about Bolivia?
Yeah. When you made that choice to want to spend some time in Bolivia, like how did you get connected to your dad's family?
So I go to Bolivia, and it's so crazy. This is where I'm just like, wow, this is some weird stuff. I go to Bolivia, and my last name is a little unique. Back in Bolivia, it's Aduana.
Okay.
And in Spanish, that also means like immigration. When you go to like Mexico or something, you see Aduana, go over there.
Oh,
that's like where. So when you say, oh, your last name's Aduana in a place like Bolivia, people kind of be like, wait, what's going on? Like, are you, you need my papers or whatever? So when I went, my last name was very rare. And I went to my school area, and the international building that had all the classes, and they saw my last name, and then my host family knew someone that had that last name.
Oh, wow.
And so then they're like, what are the chances? And so
'cause it's so rare.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they introduced me to this person. She just so happens to have a family member that is in Oruro. I was studying out in Cochabamba, which is two different cities. And we were going to travel to Oruro at some point of our 4-month travel. And that's when I met like most of my family. And I knew they were, because they looked just like my dad through pictures and stuff like that. And not to say that I didn't have a complete no communication with my dad whatsoever. My dad came very small tricklets parts of my life. And so when I got the chance to meet my uncle and my aunt, they showed me photos that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing was that I saw a childhood photo of me that they had.
Okay, so confirmed. It was just like, okay.
Yeah.
There's no more guessing.
And I'm just like, wow, it blows my mind that somebody has a kid photo of me on the other side of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did a
So who is how did they get these photos?
My dad. My dad would travel to Bolivia often, and he would just be like showing, them like, oh, these are my families that are over there.
So, and I'm sure you didn't know of this. It's like,
no, I didn't.
What was that like? I was like, what? So like, you learned a different maybe aspect of your dad at the time.
Yeah. So my dad, interesting guy. He just was very, he would, I remember I remember as a kid, I met him a few times, and he was always just kind of like, machismo, very masculine,
okay.
very toxic. He was a very hard dude. He was really giving hard times to like waitresses. He was always kind of like, hey, I need, this doesn't taste good, or any of those things. And I remember my mom would always or my mom and my aunts or my sisters, they would just encourage me not to be with my dad a lot, because mm-hmm. again, he was just not the positive guy that you want to be around. So, but I always saw the tough side of him growing up. And I think when I chose not to, like, I was like, all right, there was a point in my life where I'm like, hey, I really don't want to be as involved in this relationship.
Yeah.
I decided to stay close to my mom's side of the family. And then that's when I started, and
why? Because was your dad showing interest in like wanting to cultivate that relationship?
he wanted to.
Okay.
He was coming into Chicago. He was coming into Chicago a few times. He would travel from Chicago to Florida during the seasons, like right now. And so. But my dad was just not the best father role model. And so I think I caught that early on.
Yeah.
And then I realized as I started applying to my faith and like honoring and really caring and having sympathy on human beings, I just realized I was like, yeah, I'm curious on why my dad is the way he is. And I want to know, and I want to know, what happened. And so I go to Bolivia, and that's when they're showcasing, yeah, your dad really, he did care about you, but he had like an interesting way of showing it. And yeah, he was he was a very hard guy to be around. He drank a lot, and he liked to gamble a lot and all these things. And so, but man, I got to meet my uncle.
Yeah.
Night and day. Like he was more of like just a gentle person and just really friendly. And I have so many photos with him. And so I go to Bolivia. I get to know a little bit of my dad's upbringing. He would always say that he was from La Paz, Bolivia, which is kind of like the New York over there. But he grew up in Oruro, Bolivia, which was I would say it's kind of like Detroit. So it was my grandparents didn't know, my dad's side of my grandparents didn't know how to speak Spanish except for my grandpa, but he was working in the mines. So big over there, it's pretty big, La Mina. That whole entire there's like a whole history about that, and so my dad actually grew up very, like, he did not come from a family that was very, very well off financially. He just had to, work the streets, and he did sales when he was young. And so I learned a lot from that. And I was just like, wow, I put him in my senior year kind of like documentary that I did as my send off from the traveling
like a video documentary.
Yeah, I did it for my study abroad.
Oh wow! So you were kind of vlogging at the time, you would set up interviews and things like that.
It wasn't like this type of vlogging.
No, of course, yeah.
I had like a camera. This is like it wasn't as big as it is now.
Oh, how cool! I would have loved that as a project.
I know. They still have the CD to this day. I printed out 2 CDs. The first CD that I kept damaged, but I know that if I go back to the school, they'll keep it in the archives. And so over there, I had to write a synopsis of like, hey, this is what a second generation can look like when you come back, get to know your childhood story, and that was kind of like my senior thing. And in that group that I was with in the study abroad, in the midst of me trying to get to know my dad's story and stuff like that, there were 2 individuals that were Patrick and Cam that were in my study cohort, and there they are doing pour overs.
Oh,
and I'm just like, hey, what is that? And they're just telling me the art of third wave coffee, and they're telling me about like, why they do it the way they're doing it. Because I only grew up with Café Bustelo. I only grew up with like, Folgers and just really sweet coffee in a traditional Mexican household. And then I start hanging out with them because they like to go every morning to like local coffee shops and try to taste the coffee. And that was kind of like
this was still in Bolivia.
Yeah, that's my junior year.
Wow.
And then so these are like little seeds of what I'm doing now. And the entrepreneurship in me, I was on the corner of plazas as my side little hustle. I was in the corner of plazas learning how to do artisan facts, so like bracelets and rings.
Wow.
And I was trying to just put a tapestry, like a rug on the ground, and I was selling for 5 Bolivianos, which was like
this is something that you felt you had to do for yourself.
I was doing it because I was bored. I was like, cool, I'm doing this study with my dad thing. I'm hanging out, I'm taking classes, and I'm getting to know these guys that love coffee. But
you just don't hear that as how someone spends their free time. Like,
yeah, what? I personally was like, I was like, all right, cool. Like the what was it? The host family would always invite me to their things, and I would go. And there was times where I was just like, I just don't want to sit and watch TV. I want to make bracelets and see if I can sell them, make some money out of here, So I go to like plazas and I'm selling little bracelets that I made handcrafted. And I think that was like a little evidence of me just learning how to be an entrepreneur and learning how to be a business owner.
Did you have a realization of what the cost of living, the differences in the cost of living, and how you can just maybe have a very peaceful life in another country?
It's so funny you said that. I don't know the exact number of cost of living in Bolivia. I know it's very, very, very affordable if you're coming from the States. When I told you earlier in the podcast, I said that I went to Mexico City.
Yeah.
The currency rate is so different. It's so drastic that I was just like, man, like it's ironic that we do want to move back when we've made it our mission to move out of here to come to the United States, and now we want to come back and live, but with American salary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm totally with you when it comes to like just traveling across the world just to get that peace. I felt that. I was close to staying another 2-3 more months in Bolivia after my program finished, but I ended up getting a job back in Michigan to work for my senior internship, and so I was just like, all right, I got to go back. But I was curious about coffee from that trip.
Okay.
And I ended up and then I became a barista my senior year when I came back at a local coffee shop in Holland.
Yeah, that's wild. Like, if someone were to ask me these days, like I hate how often I used to respond like, "How you been?" and then my automatic response would be busy, and I'm realizing that now, and I'm trying to strive for more peace rather than busyness, and I enjoy when my phone's not ringing or I don't feel compelled to check for emails so often, and I think of that when I think of all these other countries, that you can find peace in.
100%. It's man, thank God for like do not disturb notification.
Do not disturb. And maybe it comes from an era of hustling to get to that point.
Yeah.
Maybe the point of realization and the point of desiring peace.
Yeah.
So it definitely comes from a place of privilege of like, I want a peaceful life.
Right.
It's like some people, it's so survival mode that they'll never get the chance to get there.
Yeah. No, for me, I really love, I value days of rest, like just to have a day of reset, not to, I try to do that on my Sundays, of course, and just really focus on not looking at my calendar until Sunday night, looking what's ahead. And again, I'm all for it. I think it's what's missing in business ownership and small businesses and owners, like from what I'm hearing, is that you have your home, which is your family and household, and then you have your work, and then and then you have your friends and community, and you're always on the go, And so I think that there is another portion where I'm just like, I think there's a time where you just gotta like reset, step away, and try to find a way to recharge. I know it's tough for everybody. You got kids, all that stuff, and so but it is super important to do that. One of the, something that I try to do at least once or twice a month, as funny as it sounds, I like to go to the sauna.
Yeah.
The sweat lodge, Chicago Sweat Lodge. And funny enough, I run into a lot of small business owners there too.
Okay, good.
I ran into a guy named Marvin, who's my mechanic.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, what's up, Marvin? He's like, what's up, man? But there's something about that. I love that. Try to fit in like the workouts. And yeah, I kid you not. You're so right. Trying to find peace. When I went to go travel, I was tempted to stay a little longer. I was tempted to just be like, yeah, I think this is good. Like balance the business, delegate and just enjoy the vibes. But no, you're right. It's so, especially in today's time, everyone wants to hustle. And there's this book out there called End Hustle by Jeff Bethke. End Hustle and End Hurry, and it's just really, really good. It's a podcast too, and I just love how it talks about like how to manage your faith, how to manage the people you love, and also how to manage yourself. And there's resting is a powerful thing. Sabbath is a powerful thing. I've heard of this saying that has really resonated with me: how to be publicly fruitful by being privately healthy. That's a very key component of thinking about like, man, like what can I do to be publicly fruitful, to be, give a lot of the best quality version of yourself. But like by doing that, you have to privately healthy. What are you doing behind closed doors and trying to maintain and discipline yourself in ways that are healthy,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Personally, I think relationships are the first to go, and then health is the next thing to go.
Yeah.
All for the business, and so it's like when one thing looks successful, there's something else behind the scenes that's not like at its peak. And I waver between trying to there's a saying of like live and die by my calendar, and if it's not in the calendar, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that could be as simple as a workout. That could be as simple as blocking. Some people block in free time, in the calendar. But that being said, you'll probably get to the point where you're overbooked. And even if you book free time, it's like, do you really want to live like that as well?
Yeah, I do the opposite. So
Okay.
I have anything that I have to go to work-wise, all these things, commitments, meeting with friends, that's on the calendar.
Yeah.
And then everything that I have that's open, I'm like, cool. I can do whatever I want. I can
Yeah.
finish watching my show. You know?
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. So I think for me,
Same, but like same. I think I'm pretty much the same, but
Okay.
working out is typically by myself, and if it's not on the calendar, I end up not going.
yeah. So shout out to Whoop. I don't know if you have
Is that
this.
what it is?
This
Okay,
is Whoop.
what is that?
This is it's called Whoop. It tracks your heart rate, your stress, your resting, recovery. And I got this on Christmas and I've been wearing it ever since. And it's an app. It's kind of like your Fitbit and or like your Apple Watch.
Yeah.
But I just personally don't like the way an Apple Watch kind of looks. And so I just like this. They have different brands, different bands. And so there's like a heart monitor inside and I can track my sleeping and all these things. And their app has like, it's nothing crazy, but I've seen like Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi wear them and LeBron wears them.
Is it a monthly subscription?
If you want to do more of the extra stuff, yeah, like joining communities.
But it doesn't
and
have
all
to
that
be.
stuff.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be.
Oh, cool.
And so for me, I like this because it keeps me accountable about like, okay, I need to make sure that health-wise I'm doing good, and we're only getting older, so it's like, man, it's real. And so I have that kind of like scarcity mindset, I think, when it comes to working out. I'm like, man, if I don't do this, then I don't think I can reward myself for like some good food or something.
It's that, and maybe you just value the long game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anyone, or maybe you experienced it yourself, like just personal medical issues, right? And just like
Right.
I was in the hospital for a week over Thanksgiving.
Wow.
I had like a bowel obstruction, and I was in there a week. Like surgery was standard. It was as smooth as possible, but my bowels were taking a minute to wake up, and so they wouldn't release me until they started waking up.
Man, dude, I'm sorry.
And and then as a business owner, I was uninsured, right? And they try to help you out,
Right.
And so like 50% off, I still owed like $48,000. That's So like I'm still navigating that at the moment, but it's like a lot. That's what I mean. Like health is first to go until something happens, and then you realize like how important it is.
Right. I think as business owners, like when you are out of commission with your health and stuff like that, like you have a lot to lose. You lose out on the projects you were working on, or obviously financial stuff that you're trying to like. Man, I was on my track on making my numbers. Now I gotta like dial down and pay this bill. And it's so stressful. And man, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That's so stressful. The other day, I had a pinch on my back, or it was like a lower pain back thing, and I was struggling with it for 2 weeks, and I was taking like some painkillers. But I said to myself, I'm like, okay, I am going, if this still continues after week 3, I'm going to go to the hospital. But like my girlfriend and everybody was like, dude, you should just go. And I'm like, no, we got to continue this. We got to finish this stuff up.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Well,
It's
life will
like
humble
health.
you.
Yeah. Priorities is key. It's such key. And 100%.
I mean, hope you get answers. I mean, an MRI is in your future.
Oh, well, thankfully, I don't have the pain anymore. So I was like, okay, cool.
But did you get like clarity? Was it a pinched nerve, or was it a bulging disc?
I think it was what is that called? Sciatica nerve.
Yeah.
thing? Yeah.
So it was something was pinching the nerve.
Yeah. So I have, thankfully, I have a doctor's appointment next week, so we're good there. But I was just like, man, and I understand how it is to have benefits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This past year, we hit a milestone that we now can offer that.
Nice.
I just got my eye exam through it. So I was like, this is really cool. This is really great. It's offered to any of our employees that have, if they want to have over full time, over 30, 40 hours.
That's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
Now thankfully, I think that's why we had to go into the direction of the second shop, so that we can now have more sustainability and be able to provide that. So
You know, I don't know if this is, well, maybe we're jumping ahead, but let's eventually come back to your iceberg analogy. I really enjoyed you sharing that. But before we get there, tell me about what aspect of coffee did you initially navigate when you saw your friends doing it, brewing?
Wait, can you repeat that again?
Back in Bolivia.
Can you repeat that again?
Which part? The analogy part, or
after the analogy?
I wanted to hear your initial introduction into coffee. So, you saw your friends doing it, right? And I think you were still abroad at the time.
Yep.
So, what were your next steps after that?
Yeah. So one of the guys, his name's Cam. He was in the group, and he kept fantasizing about having his own coffee bike. And shout out to him. He's doing it to this day.
Is he? Okay,
he has a
wow.
coffee bike. It's called Cam's Kettle.
Oh, nice.
And you go on the IG, man, kudos to him. He goes out there. He's in the plazas. He's out he's based out of DC.
Wow.
So he came to to study abroad, learn, and all these things, and then was fascinated about coffee. And he also was a little bit of an entrepreneur, and we would just talk. And he was like, yeah, man, I do want to do a coffee bike, and I'm trying to find a coffee bike, and da-da-da-da-da. Soon, lo and behold, he ends up getting his own coffee bike by, I think, his senior year of college.
Wow.
And till this day, he's actually still serving, and I'm just mind blown because man, he can go out there for hours when it's icy cold and stuff like that. You see the intensity of what he does there, and so we stayed in touch. It was nothing more of it from after seeing him and Patrick just doing a bunch of coffee stuff. I just was like, this is really cool. I want to tag along for coffee shop tours. And then when I came back to Michigan, I wanted to apply to a coffee shop, and that's when one of my friends worked there, and he got me into the job, and so it was really cool. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when I learned a little bit about local roasters, Ferris coffee. In your gift bag, you'll have Ferris coffee and nuts. That's one of my original. It's my first coffee employer.
Wow.
He came to my shop.
Oh, that's special.
The CEO came to my shop about 2-3 months ago, and he's like, man, I didn't know that, that's awesome. I was like, yeah, I really appreciate you allowing me to work for Ferris, because if it weren't for Ferris, I don't know if I would have been able to dive into the other opportunities in the coffee industry that I have been able to do because of that. That was an open door.
Oh, wow. So how long or how fast did you pick up kind of brewing and being a good barista?
Yeah, that took a couple years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I remember I was at Ferris at the time in the coffee shop in my senior year was called JP's. And I was at JP's, privately owned by Ferris, and I would go to Grand Rapids and I learned their coffee classes and all these things, and we learned cupping.
Yeah.
We learned, single origins, and we did all, how to clean an espresso machine. It was a whole week class. And so the manager of the coffee shop never really took the time to invest in me to go behind the espresso bar. I was around it. I was more so just doing the drip. I was doing the pour overs, and I was doing the customer service. I think they all knew that I was bringing more to this because of my personality. I'm come on in, So there was that, and then where I really dived in was with Tim Coonan at Big Shoulders. He brought me in as a barista at one point, and I was there, and I learned how to work the espresso machine through his company. That was 2018.
We're talking Chicago then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is after I graduated out of college. I get a corporate job for 7-8 months in West Loop. I was a recruiter. Realized I didn't like it. I was just like, man, this is cutthroat. And so I want to try to get into local businesses. And I applied to 2 coffee shops after that. And I was working for Back of the Yards Coffee with Jesse and Inguez, and then I was working on the side with Tim Coonan, Big Shoulders Coffee, as a barista. With Back of the Yards, I was a sales rep for their coffee beans, and then with Tim, he just wanted me. I was just a barista for a good month, 2 months in advance, 2 months around there at the shop. And I just realized the schedule was really intense. It's hard to be. You'll see it in the coffee community, but there's baristas that will have 2 jobs. They'll have 2 barista jobs or a barista and something else
just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I realized, I was like, yeah, this is a lot for me.
So like the pay might be okay, but like the hours aren't there because it's just a coffee shop.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, I was trying to help grow Back of the Yards brand by doing wholesale, going into grocery stores, learning all those things. But at the same time, I didn't really have that much expertise behind the espresso bar. I knew the terminology, I knew everything, but I just didn't know how to work it. And Tim would he's like, cool, you're going to be a barista at one of the Gold Coast location. And that's where I was kind of like ripping the espresso. I was working with the Strada at the time. And so like, that was really cool. And then unfortunately I would have, if I could, I would have like probably stayed a little longer, but I just said, yeah, I can't do 2 jobs. I could only do 1, you know? And Back of the Yards was cool. I stayed there for about a year. And then when I was there for a year, that's when I got a job offer with this coffee company called Tradecraft Outfitters, which is not too far away from here, formerly their office.
That's a lot. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
But did you have any takeaways from the recruiting job at all?
Sales. I knew how to call. I knew how to just continue, learning how to talk to a client, see what they're looking for, and trying to convince somebody to like get out of their job to work for one of our clients. I was a recruiter there. So
what type of clients were you recruiting for?
So we were assigned different jobs. I think one of them was Kraft Heinz. That was one of our clients. So I would have to go talk to the sales guy. There was this crazy thing called the Morgan method. Have you?
No, I've never
heard of it. Apparently there's a study thing, and they would do, it's called the Morgan method because they said it was like 80% chance you're going to get a call back. So you would say, hi, my name is Raoul. I'm trying to reach out to Victor. Your name came up at a social gathering, and I felt like I wanted to give you a call. The nature of this call is time sensitive, so please give me a call back at this number. Do. And then you would hear, and you'd be like, "Oh, what the heck? What was the what was the sensitivity of the call? And they're just like, hey, just want to know how are you liking your job?" And they'd just be like, and they would be so mad. They're like, man, I thought like it was a doctor. I thought it was something, family, But
so, despite the callback, did you get a lot of just pissed off, people then? Or?
Yeah, I went through it. I had to make 70 calls a day.
Wow.
I had to make 70 calls a day to hit my quota. And so I became an expert in how to do a really stellar voicemail. I just like tried to get as much information from a potential talent. And so I believe you had somebody here that was a recruiter here.
Yeah, we've had a couple.
Yeah. So like they had a little bit more grasp, but I knew immediately for me, 6-7 months, I was like, I'm good. I'm going to try to get back into local businesses because, just corporate space.
It's interesting. It's like in any role, whether it's recruiting or sales in general, if you got to believe in the thing you're selling. So if you're aligned with the clients, if you're a recruiter or the product or service that you're trying to sell, it no longer feels salesy.
Right. You have to know I think I said that before at some point was like you have to love what you're giving, what you're selling and stuff. And so for me, naturally, when I'm trying to talk to clients about corporate services, coffee services, I'm excited about it. It's natural. And so, yeah.
Okay. And then through those roles at Big Shoulders and where else?
So it was Back of the Yards
Coffee. Did that give you kind of a bird's eye perspective of the fabric of the coffee world?
To some extent, yeah. Okay. I just saw that there wasn't that many minority-owned coffee companies at the time. Jesse was probably one of the very few. And he, till this day, I think he's still in the works of I think they just moved. They closed their original location. Now he's going into another development space in Back of the Yards, and he's continued pushing his business, right? And I think by seeing him and seeing the back end, that's where I started growing this idea of like, work smarter, not harder. I believe that there's ways of kind of like maneuvering in certain ways, so you don't have to like go through the long way and just there's shortcuts to this. And so how can we be more efficient? And so that's what convinced me to go to my other so at the time, that's when I started going to Tradecraft Outfitters. So have you heard of Tradecraft?
I haven't. You said it was near here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they had an office right here, not too far away from Cermak, and unfortunately, they closed during the pandemic.
Oh.
They're still involved, but they're all mobile, and most of their spaces in California now.
Oh, wow.
So if you wanted to open up a coffee shop and you didn't know much about it, Tradecraft would send out reps that would come in and be like, yeah, we got the line of roasters that we recommend.
So consultants.
We have the equipment. We have distribution connect. So we will give you cups, lids, all these things. And I was one rep of a coffee brand back at the yards. And I remember I would go and knock on so many restaurants and like, hey, give our coffee a try. And they're like, sorry, we're on contract with Tradecraft. And that's how I heard about it. I'm like, where's Tradecraft? Who's Tradecraft? And so I knocked on Tradecraft's store and I said, hey, how can my brand get into your portfolio? I joke around. It's kind of like a rapper dropping off their mixtape to a record label.
Yeah, leaving it in the car.
Yeah.
Stealing a car, leaving the record in there.
Yeah. So I said to them, so they saw that. I got to connect with someone there at the time. She's now she works for Metropolis. It was a rep at Tradecraft, and she sat me down, and I guess she really liked how I was how I was presenting myself. And then she's like, hey, would you, we can probably bring in back of the yards portfolio in, but are you also looking at the time? And I guess it came at a right time when somebody was just opting out of the business and they needed to fill in a spot. And I just said, sure, and we had that conversation and we killed two birds in one stone. I was able to get a better work opportunity, and I was able to bring in the brand of Back of the Yards into their portfolio. Till this day, they still have that.
Okay.
I remember one of our clients was Cindy's Rooftop.
Nice.
So Cindy's, and it's so funny how this goes. He came, you interviewed
David Moore.
David Moore. He was an original client of mine.
Wow.
I don't know if he remembers me, but I remember him because he kept mentioning Cindy's.
Cindy's was formative for him.
Yeah. So I was his connect at the time. He was getting Back of the Yards coffee into one of the espresso machines at one of the Cindy's. And so I would talk to him a lot.
Because they do coffee cocktails. I mean, and I know they use Kyoto Black for a lot of it too.
Yeah. This was back in like 2019. Yeah, 2019 or so. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, what a small world. And it's so cool to see everybody in different areas of the industry and where they're going. And I love it, It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I mean, I ended up, so with Tradecraft, I started learning so much about like the industry and the back end, not just coffee, but learning how to I was an account manager, so I managed multiple brick and mortar coffee shops. And some of them were close to us and some of them were far from us in regards to relationship. And I had to build that relationship. And I just learned what it took to be a coffee shop owner.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
But what about it did you learn continue to stoke the fire of maybe one day you might want it for yourself?
Yeah. I learned that you couldn't have, it was rare to have that as your full-time job. Because sometimes it was what I picked up was that unless you are owned by a big hospitality group or there's a big, corporation behind it backing it up, or if you're going in with a group of friends, if you're trying to be a local business owner and stuff like that, just a one-man band, chances are you're going to have a full-time job and this will be your baby that you're going to be nurturing part-time. And then you delegate, you hire a manager and you hire baristas. A full-time coffee shop owner, unless you are working behind the bar and you are working front-facing, then I can see that being profitable and all those things. But it is so tough, labor and all the overhead. It's just it's Chicago is set up in a way that you cannot. It's not sustainable just for that. You have to think outside the box. So,
can you elaborate on that in the sense of like Chicago in what sense? Like not a lot of foot traffic or like why?
There's that too. Okay. So there's certain areas, there's some hot spots that are great that are like, man, there's always foot traffic here.
Yeah.
Milwaukee, and you have like the big streets. I think people believe that it's like an American dream. Oh, to have a coffee shop one day. So you want to just be a hole in the wall in a local little quiet neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's tough because that, unless it's near a college campus, it's a quantity. I believe it's a quantities game of like trying to get as much foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to be that just a small local business. And so I saw a lot of the small businesses that I was working with, and like, man, they would have to expand their menu. They would have to bring in food to an extent, to a degree. And now we're seeing a lot of like these businesses doing pop-up collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a lot of like these things that are no longer breaking into the coffee shop. You're
it's just
trying
a
to
vessel.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think it challenged me to think, man, how can we think outside the box? How can we, work smarter, not harder?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Because it's hard to cut corners when you're trying to deliver a great product and not rip off the farmers as well.
Yeah.
Right. You want everyone involved to get their cut.
Right.
To have an equitable cut. And so without cutting corners, it's like, how do we maintain that quality while becoming profitable?
Absolutely. So I think, and that's where our position is as Third Coffee was, I feel like there's so many coffee shops in Chicago that share that same gospel of like giving back to the farmers and all these things. And so for me, it's like our mission is to help introduce Third Wave to just beginners to learn. Tomorrow we're going to All Steel. It's a corporate furniture space office in the West Loop. And they're going to do it. We're going to do cupping with them.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to showcase multiple roasters. And it's going to be my manager and myself, and we're going to talk to them and give them like this intimate experience. But like, I think for us, our mission is to help educate and just kind of like welcome you into it. And then if you want to know more, there's some amazing people that have more knowledge than myself and or some of our managers, that we can direct you to.
So was this more of a corporate event, or like were they
All Steel?
Yeah, or are they genuinely interested in coffee, or is this a vessel for team bonding? It's like what is?
It's a little mesh of three.
Oh, okay.
So they're corporate. They want to create a the CEO is coming in, and so they want to create like and he loves coffee. Very loves local, like more of a specialty coffee. And so we're going to just be kind of coming in and doing, kind of introducing that. And so that he's traveling in. So, I don't know how they found us.
That's cool.
Just kind of like, wow, that's cool. So we're like, okay, cool. We're bringing like little cups and stuff like that.
Well,
so
this would be a good time to explain, like, that implies there was a first wave and a second wave, right? So like
Exactly.
what does it all mean?
Yeah. So you want me to answer that question?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, from what we've picked up and the things like, and this is what we would say is that first wave is when back in the 50s, right after World War II, coffee was like in a tin can, and essentially it was introduced in the home. So you would make a lot of coffee that was like in-house. It was our home. It was, I always joked around. It was like where our grandparents would drink. Folgers, Cafe Bustelo. It's every, what was the Cafe Du Monde, or all
Cafe
these
Du Monde.
old school things. That's like the surface level explanation. If you wanted to kind of go into the deeper, right, of Arabica and Robusta, Robusta was highly used in the first wave coffee because it was cheaper, but it was not as great quality, right? It's not in a, what is it? It's in a very impoverished place that was not made in with care. And so Arabica was more of like specialty, and I thought that was more, and it's in a farming where the way it's processed is more intimate and it's great. I joke around, I say the best way to remember it is Arabica A plus, best quality Arabica. That's how I remember it.
Okay.
So there's that. The second wave to it was essentially we're now introducing coffee from home into more of commercial space. And so we can see some of the pioneers that I think that they launched it in the late 90s, where we could see Dunkin', we see McDonald's, we see Starbucks, we see all these guys like flipping coffee into more of like sweet treats, frappuccinos, and doing all these funkadelic stuff with it. And then now we're going into third wave, which is a little bit more, again, specialty, crafted. It's storytelling, talking about where it's coming from the process of bean to cup. And so I believe that like that is where, and I would argue that the episode of Friends TV show back in the 90s, that's when third wave was introduced. Because if you notice, the V60 pour over was always on it was always like on stage. Wow. And then they would see that and they'd be like, oh, what is the pour over method, right? And so I always believe that it kind of launched early 2000s, the rise of third wave, and now we get to see that more. There's this documentary called Documentary About Coffee, and we show that to all our new employees that come into Third, and it talks about all that. It's 2000. It's an old film. It's like 2009, 2010, and it's made by Stumptown.
Oh, nice.
And so Blue Bottle's on there, and they kind of talk a little bit about areas of coffee specialty association, the Coffee Specialty Association, and what they do. And I just thought it was a really great general glimpse of what it is all about. And so when we bring on somebody that's completely new to coffee, but they have the desire to learn, we kind of show them the video. Okay. I was introduced to the video back when I was with Tradecraft.
Okay. So, wow.
Yeah, so that's why people ask why is the name Third.
Yeah.
And so there's many reasons.
Okay.
And obviously for those who know coffee knowledge, they would say, oh, third wave. And so like, that's great. Some people would know like it was from the CEO of Starbucks of Third Place. And, to somebody who's a Chicago native, oh, it's Third Coast, and
I've never heard that actually. Third Coast, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Third Coast.
Yeah.
And so East Coast, West Coast, Midwest is the Third Coast.
There's also this wave of like third space. Like people are missing that third space. The space away from work, home, and I think coffee shops can be one of those third spaces.
100%. And now we're seeing that, right? We're seeing everyone's embodying that language of it to be in third place. And I think that's really cool. That's really awesome. There was a coffee shop back in the day before 2020 that was called Third Wave Coffee. It was on Lake Street. Yeah. And they closed down. So then we just decided to take on the word third. Okay. And now it's crazy because we can look at it and we're like, hey, this is kind of like foretelling because it took our third year of when we were just a mobile coffee cart to finally having a brick and mortar shop. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of really cool. And there's a lot of things that I personally like in threes. Yeah. It
reminds me of the brewery phase 3.
I've never been.
Which was their third phase. It was like the third iteration. Like the first one was like, people would go to this restaurant in Schaumburg for this brewer. I was brewing crazy beer. And then the brewer moved to Moore, a brewery / restaurant in Elmhurst. And then he mustered up with his co-founders enough money to start his own a brewery in Lake Zurich. Wow. Called Phase 3.
Lake Zurich is cool.
But yeah, so that's it. So does anyone confuse you guys with the third wave?
No, I think they've been out.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been out for such a long time. We haven't been mistaken yet, which I think has been really good. Yeah, I think we have been seeing like different color palettes that is like, oh, it's cross.
It's distinct. It's
distinct. But we are seeing that there is an embrace on it, right? So like we're seeing a lot of lavenders and a lot of small businesses. We're seeing a lot of pink. I personally am phased out on the pink. All my baristas are like, why not keep pink? Why not keep pink? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I was 26 at the time. Pink wasn't all over the place. Now it's all over the place. So let's change it up. And I really like the green.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because now, as we're having our second shop, it's like, cool. We can showcase new colors and kind of, not be put in a box, but like be able to expand. And if the time does come, if it ever comes, if we ever have multiple shops, we would have different colors.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes me we haven't even mentioned Side Practice, but like it makes me think of Francis and how different Drip Collective is from Side Practice. It's not just a copy and paste.
Right. So shout out to them. I remember I met Francis a few times. It's funny when you're a small business, I feel like it's kind of like a graduating class where you're going in with a group of other small businesses and you're seeing everyone do these amazing things, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I remember Francis opened up around the time that I just made the LLC, and I'm like, cool. Like, he helped me out. So funny. I went in to go get coffee and try it out, and he sold me a pour over set. And so like you can just like make pour overs outside. So I was like, dude, appreciate the love, man. He's like, yeah, man, stay in touch. And I was like, for sure. And we run into each other through a lot of like community groups for like business summits and stuff like that. And I love what he's doing. I used to know a rep at the time that used to work at Dark Matter, and he always said something that really was compelling. He said that a lot of Dark Matter's coffee shops, the way they open up shops, they're kind of like different records.
Yeah.
And they're different themes. And I love that because it's like, you go to one shop, they're all kind of like the same. And I think there's some truth. I think that's a good thing, but I also believe that there's goodness and diversity, and you change it up. And I think Francis has something, he's so smart with it because he has been able to create kind of like a accelerator program, and then see these
an
pop-ups.
Incubator, right?
Yeah, an incubator, see what works, and then cool, like let's tap into it and go full throttle with it, and I think that's an amazing thing. Drip Collective, Ty, he used to be I met Ty when I was at Tradecraft, and he was a barista at Metric, and we stayed in touch. And so much love to all of those guys, man. They're doing really cool stuff. He was doing Drip Collective, more of like kind of events.
Yeah.
And now,
which was the original intention of that other location. Yeah.
And now look at where it's at, you know, and it's really cool. And so I think overall it's just a beautiful thing just to see where people are going with it. I don't know if I explained it to another place, but I just said something about like the coffee culture is changing now. Like now we're getting a little bit more of like the true Chicago of what like urban Chicago can feel like, Chicago street. And I love that. At first I wanted to do that, but now I realize I'm like, as I get older, I'm still the full 100% owner. And as I'm getting older, I think the branding matures over time and you realize what works and what doesn't. And I just love seeing like what's happening in the coffee scene right now in the city.
Damn. Yeah. Where were you when you picked up that brewing kit from Francis? Like where in your journey were you?
Yeah. You're opening up another can of stories. So I actually, Tradecraft, I was there up into 2019, late 2019.
Okay.
And it was a job that I truly loved. But I told you earlier that I had a passion of education. Okay. And my friend that was working at the charter school that I was at, he's like, hey man, they're looking for somebody that, wants to teach and is, from the program or from the school. And so I had to make the tough choice to say, okay, I think I want to give this a shot. Wow. And so at the time that I met Francis, I was a teacher. And if you look it up, the stories, you'll see that, I was an educator, and that's kind of like how I spawned it. But, before the education, I was in the coffee industry. Yeah. And so when I met Francis, I was at a teaching job, and it was in the pandemic. So I was remote and very not utilized as much. So I was on my free time just making a business.
Wow. So what were you teaching?
Soft skills, academic support, so public speaking, note taking,
career development. Yeah. Oh wow.
It was a charter school, so you could like create your own curriculum too.
Jeez.
So it was cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
How did it compare to Tradecraft at the time? It's just like, did you feel like you made the right move, or?
I thought it was a move I needed to take because I needed to learn, and it was all crazy timing because everybody at Tradecraft unfortunately got furloughed. Okay. During the pandemic. Yeah. And so when you are in two boats, you want to be on the boat that's like education still around. I was still employed. I was still getting a check. So I was like, wow, this was all interesting timing. I should have just, I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I did too. So at the end of the episode with Francis, when I hosted, this was probably late 2019, he was like, you're welcome to use the coffee shop. because I didn't have a studio at the time.
Wow.
And I got in 2 episodes, one of them with Derek from Pauline G's.
Oh.
And then they locked down. And funny enough, like that, their first iteration of Novel Pizza was around the pandemic.
Wow.
And yeah, crazy times.
Crazy times.
But so then, were you ever let go from the charter school?
No, I wasn't. I just wasn't. They never called me. They're like, yeah, we'll call you when we need you. But they were more so focused on STEM. Yeah. So they were trying to implement STEM classes in Zoom. And so I didn't teach any of that. I just taught like an additional credit add-on class. Yeah. So I was waiting, but I was like,
You were still getting paid?
I was still getting paid.
To just wait around?
Yeah.
Why?
So I'm like, I'm not going to knock on their door. I'm going to wait till they call me. In the meantime, hey, yo, Falter.
Yeah. You know what? Like a lot of other places and organizations like incubators say this, like if you have an opportunity to learn on someone else's dime, like do that.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in total agreement. And so it took me a while after, I just did it after a few years. Once I launched Thrd, that's when I transitioned to full time.
Okay.
And now I do it full time, right? And so being able to do it, it's so crazy how times have like happened. And
and so your stability allowed you to spend your stimulus check on, what was it, a trike or was it
the stimulus checks? I use that to,
or a cart. You built
out half of the cart, and then also buy like used equipment, because in the catering world during the pandemic, everyone was going through liquidation. So I bought like a sick $4,000 espresso machine for like $900.
Whether it was gym equipment or coffee equipment, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now I was like, man, I came in when it was low, and now now there's some cool players that are coming out, like that are doing some mobile coffee stuff in Chicago now.
Okay.
The hard part about the city is that it's brutal with licensing and permits. And so if you do your homework, you'll know that there's like a lot of vendors that are not doing things legal, like they don't have the proper paperwork. And I think that they're confident enough that, they're small enough that they won't get noticed. And I agreed to some, because I was like that the first couple months when I started there. Everybody was dealing with the pandemic stuff. I'm just out here serving Spro.
Sure.
So now I think, the more of us are coming out here, they're going to start, I truly believe that there's going to be more like hunkered down on licensing and permitting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of like tough. But
so where would you initially pop up with the cart?
So I started off on the street, business to business, just kind of like work with because they needed people to come into their shop. So I'm like, hey, let's do a collab. Right.
And you would just fit this in your vehicle, in a van?
Yeah, it was collapsible. Yeah. Wow. So I would go rent out a U-Haul, get a truck, collapse it, and then bring it out and stuff like that. And then I would also use buddies' cars that just wanted to help out, and we would just set it all up.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
For coffee.
Yeah.
This is wild. And you said your first year was like 5,000 revenue?
5,000 out of the 3 months that was. But
that's still, despite the amount, that's probably still reassuring at the time. Like you're onto something special.
100%. I was just like, okay, there's something here, right? Like I'm like, and then eventually, then the condos buildings and property management buildings started calling me, and then we were starting to do lobbies, and now we were trying, we were small enough where a client was like, hey, we're giving you money, so like we don't have to pay you out of our pocket, like you can come and take on from our residents. And then I was like, yeah, for sure. And I think I heard it from someone is like, if you know your worth, double it, and so I said, okay. I think I was scared. I said, okay.
The first time you asked for more?
I was like, well, I really don't. I think I showed them numbers. I said, yeah, we're making enough, but we're breaking even. And I just don't. I think what I want to do is I want to try to get something from their pocket, and then obviously supplement it with whatever we're selling too. And so I created that program of like, how can we make this a win-win for all of us? And so eventually, I just started pivoting from different customers. I knew which customers were really good for us and which customers weren't. And yeah.
What does that mean? Was it a certain neighborhood, or what do you mean customers that weren't
for the catering, for the mobile catering? It was more so like, okay, do I want to do an event at a school, or do I want to do an event at a tech company? You know what I mean? Where are they having a bigger budget?
Who was that? Yeah, who's willing to spend
a little bit more?
Yeah,
and obviously because we were presented as a specialty coffee, I wanted to also educate. I wanted to showcase us in a place where I think that is more highly valued. And I would say that a tech company that are more of a younger crowd would have benefited us more than going to a school that has a tighter budget. And it's about moms and dads that are very more familiar with like the traditional style.
Yeah.
You
think that's changing these days though?
I don't know. I think so. I hope so. I believe now that
you're being in Bucktown, right? And then eventually Humble Park. Like you're in these neighborhoods with family neighborhoods.
Yeah. So I'm noticing now Bucktown is a little bit younger. It's like young couples, young kids, and like that's really awesome. Like it's great that we're that's the where we want to tap into. Humble Park is going to be a little different demographic, which I'm super excited for. And and it's making me we are extending our stretch with customers all steel. I would have not known that, and it's crazy too because sometimes it's the point of our contact. It's not the direct client. It's never like the CEO, but it could be like the community manager. That is so they're
plugged in.
They're plugged in.
Yeah.
They know what's up. They know the culture and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool.
That is very cool. Tell me about that the iceberg analogy now. So like that. I don't know if you had that foresight from the very beginning, but you describe like the tip of the iceberg as the brick and mortar, things that the public can see. But what the public doesn't see is everything beneath the water.
Right.
And so you're cultivating these multiple streams of revenue to sustain what's visible. Yeah.
I don't know where I got that. I think it was through my account management days of like understanding where people had money to spend. And I think about it now, it's like we see that in roasters, their bottom of their iceberg, their biggest generator could be their wholesale, their coffee line and all this stuff. I think it's different when it's like as we know, like CPG. And I think that's a different beast and I wouldn't know too much on it. But I know that when it comes to roasters, it's like, it's better to be have a wholesale presence versus just having the wholesale and manage a shop at the same time. Managing multiple, I don't know how the big, I don't know how Metropolis does it. I don't know how Intelligentsia does it, or even like, kudos to all those guys that have multiple shops and yet they do the roasting portion.
You think their wholesale accounts are just that valuable that it's sustaining their brick and mortar?
If you think about it, like Metropolis is all over a lot of like these restaurants, the old school restaurants, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when they serve pour overs,
Yeah, and their prices are very, very like not, they're cheap a little bit and compared to like some grander scales, like they're, hopefully I'm not getting an NDA, I'm joking. But the, I would say that a 5-pound bag for a Metropolis is at like $10, $11 a pound, 5 pounds wholesale.
Wow.
Whereas like if you get coffee from a specialty coffee, it can range up to 14, 15, 17, double that. Yeah. And so that just goes to show the quality.
And Metropolis is great, it's just
100%.
like,
yeah. I know some of the guys over there, so they're really cool people. They were the first ones to kind of give us like shout outs when we first started, and I just think it's a different customer base. It's a different demographic, and
there was probably a time when they were the craft, company on the scene.
100%.
Right? Isn't that wild?
So I'm like, no shots fired on anybody, but I'm literally just gonna say that I've always said this is like I think companies age. Companies age, and that's not a bad thing. I think that there's the fathers of coffee, and then there's eventually going to be like the 30, 40-year-olds that are going to get into the coffee scene, like such as, I would say like Intelligentsia came out early 2000s, and look at where they're at now. Metropolis came around early 2000s, and look at where they're at now. And now we got like these really cool young companies that are coming out, right? And then the middle, and then we're in the bridge gap, right? We got companies that have came out from like 2008, 2010, 2012, but it's by pivoting. It's pivoting your branding and all these things. And it's trying to stay with the times, sticking with like what is working, what is happening in the culture, how do you implement that? And so all that to say is I don't think business owners think that as much as like their branding will always stay the same. I think there's going to come a time where you have to rebrand, or you have to like pivot, and you kind of have to change it up. Not to say it's like this, but I mean, it's Red Lobster, Red Lobster is rebranding, but that's completely different. I'm just saying like there's a way we have to think that way.
It's toeing the line to like stay to stay relevant but continue doing things that you want to do.
Right. Back to the iceberg analogy.
Yeah.
I think that, the pandemic is what taught us is that you cannot just bank off of foot traffic in the city of Chicago. You have to find ways to bring the product to a customer. A mentor of mine always says you have to think what's going to take you out of business. Like what will beat you be your next competitor, your future competitor. What the industry you're in, who can take you out of that? So obviously, there's robots, AI, you can't do that. But I'm just saying it's like more of like, how do you be mobile? How do you like bring your product to them? And how do you, instead of just sustaining your space, I think that's a good way of doing it. For us, our bread and butter is the mobile services. It's not just, it's the coffee cart. And I believe that your coffee shop will never be popping right off the first 3 months. I think it's, you grow into it, you build the marketing, you build the presence in the neighborhood, and your numbers will increase over time because you have built that credibility. I can see that from my shop. Every year I look at our year to year, like, okay, what did we make last year? And look at what we're making at. We're always higher. So it's showing that we're growing our presence. And I think there's going to come a time where you can look at all your shops and be like, okay, cool. Like now they're growing from year one because everyone knows it now.
Yeah.
So when you want to build a coffee shop, it takes over 3 years for it to be.
Yeah. But you were establishing a brand with catering and the mobile cart.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely more margin in that. There's definitely more wiggle room.
Because I was going to say, like, was it worth the squeeze? Because I'm sure it was very laborious, like, to do all that.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point where for the business, I would have like one catering gig a month. And thankfully I can say now, I'm very fortunate to say that we have like 1 or 2 a week requests. And then we're dispatching and we're getting callbacks like for a year. I think we have to look, it's just like, you just got to think about things like strategically. And I think that's where your salesy part.
It has to. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So that's interesting. So they generate the greatest margins. Okay.
I think down the road.
Why don't I hear that more often from other coffee shop owners? Or like, why aren't they tapping into that?
I don't know. And I'm sure you probably know this, but like, it's unfortunate that in the Chicago market, the coffee market, it can get a little tribal or it can get a little bit like territorial.
Sure.
And so no one wants to talk. No one wants to like share each other's whatever. And I think that we have to build a bridge gap of it, of being able to be, because I think you think of scarcity of like, man, like it's bad enough that we're competing against Starbucks, or it's bad enough that we're competing against McDonald's or all these big guys, but like now it's like, now we're working together, local businesses, and like, how do we compete with one another and all those things. And I don't know. I think that it's probably, a secret thing that maybe no one wants to say is that, maybe I do have a very, very expensive regular that calls us for coffee and I buy their coffee quarterly and they sustain my office, but I don't know. So I was like, cool. Well, I know I want to become one of the first where I can show them, hey, this is how we're doing it. We're not doing it. We're not part of the Illuminati. Third eye.
Yeah. The other 2 brands that are using their space as simply a vessel for collaboration that come to mind are like, there's a Mochi Nut in Lincoln Park that is always inviting.
Do they have donuts?
Mochi Nut, like it's a brand of I don't know if they're like Japanese based donuts, but they're donuts. They look like small dots connected together, right? So like those are the Mochi Nut donuts, but they invite other small business owners into their space and to utilize the space for whatever they want. It's a similar concept to what Side Practice has been doing as an incubator. And then Amber Agave, the boba tea shop in Wicker Park, they're doing the same thing as well. And so is there any part of you that wants to do that, or do you feel like it would take away from the purity of what Third Coffee stands for?
No, there has been a lot of people that have been wanting to do. There's been a lot of people that have been wanting to do collaborations. I just try to think about like the timing of it. For example, right now, like there's that huge wave of DJs. DJs are coming out. DJs are, started out in LA. Now they're coming over here.
Yeah.
Shout out to every coffee shop that has done that. And I think that's really cool. I want to do it too, but at the same time, it's like, it's winter right now. I want to wait till the summertime when the doors are open and all these things. And so I think there's a timing for that. Second, we've done a little bit of collaborations, like shout out to Sin Titulo. They've always, they've come in, they've done like little hosts of like flower pickup spots. They've done some fun stuff like that. For food, that's a little dicey for me, just because we don't have a proper kitchen, and I'm not too well informed on like the licensing and all that stuff. And
what about like a pastry box, like a pastry chef, like
pastry chef? I mean, I'm open to it.
So, or it's like it's not made in house, but like you wholesale it.
Yeah, wholesale it. Yeah, we have Fab Cakes. You can find some of her products like at another coffee shop like Oob in River North, and some like other cool spaces. So she's been in a few pockets like that.
We just visited Fat Peach.
Fat Peach, where's that?
That's McKinnon. It's like Bridgeport-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't really hung out too much on the south side as much, given the fact that I was like, I've been here on this side of the town a lot. And so, but yeah, no, I'm always open to doing collaborations. I'm always trying to figure out how we can make it reasonable for all of us. It's a win-win for everybody. I wish I can have that space where it's like, cool, we have room for, right now what we're doing is we're doing musicians, live music. You come in. I like going to late nights to like a jazz bar.
Yeah.
I like to listen to,
bar,
and just hearing some live. And I'm like, hey, you want to come by my shop? We just did something for St. Patty's. But the other thing is too, and I'm going to be completely transparent, is that we're just very busy with the mobile stuff and second shop build out that I think that's one of the things that we need to work on is planning ahead of events.
Yeah, that's tough.
We're always at the end of the clock and we're like, oh man, like this is coming up.
Nothing's on the calendar.
What are we going to do? And so I have my team and we're trying to figure something out. And we always say, we'll do it next year. And then when that comes about, it's like, so I would hope that down the road, I want to stop at a point where I'm like, okay, I think we're good with where we're at. Let's stop scaling until it scales organically.
Yeah.
That now we can work off of what we currently have. And then we can do all this other fun stuff,
Sure.
Right now, my mindset is kind of like, let's try to grow up more of our presence. Let's try to, get more sales and deals. The coffee shop itself, Bucktown is great. I love Bucktown. It's awesome. I don't know if you know this, but we have like a competitor across the street, Ipseno.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they, we've attempted to reach out to them to say, hey, like, you want to do like a coffee crawl on the block?
Oh yeah.
I haven't heard back from them.
Well, what about a coffee? Not necessarily. I don't know if a coffee crawl is the right vessel, but some type of, like, if you connect with the Bucktown Chamber of Commerce, right?
100%. Maybe having to go that extra,
and there's a sheet where people can collect stamps or whatever, and but like the businesses down the block just open up their doors on a certain day, and
right, 100%. We're all for it. And so we're like trying to navigate Bucktown. Bucktown has its own hurdles. There's not that much easy parking anymore. When I first signed on, we had front parking.
Yeah, you talked about bike lanes.
Now we got bike lanes. That's a competitor of mine, the bike lanes. And then we have, what is it? And then it's just like, so how can we, and I'm excited for Humble Park because Humble Park, there wasn't a big, strong coffee presence until like with CC Ferns used to have back in the day, back in early 2019. They were there. The lines were always long, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they couldn't keep those doors open. And now it's with California Clipper. It's a whole DJ room set.
Wow!
And so right now, that corner is going to be a good area for us. That I think that there's no factors that there's like not going to affect us in that way. And it's going to be bigger. We're going to have a private office for customers to rent out.
Oh,
yeah. So you walk in, so the place it used to be a kid's store.
Okay.
And that closet was dedicated to like a playroom. And now we're going to flip it and turn it into a place where you can work and, hunker down, take any video sales, Zoom calls that you want. And then we're going to bring in a muralist for that second shop, a new muralist.
Okay. Yeah. So I was going to ask like how the second build out is differing from the first one.
They're going to be like siblings. They're not going to be too identical in regards to like experience. We're going to have different table. I mean, when we were at the first shop, it was a tea shop, and I loved it. I was a fan of Hugo. And so we just worked off of what was given to us. And now we're taking the second shop, and I have to build everything out from scratch.
So you had to, did you hire like a developer?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I hired on a kind of like a contractor and a GC.
Yeah.
So the last shop, I was that guy. I did everything. I like food, Facebook Marketplace, everything, and it was just like a huge headache.
Did you do any drywalling in the first location?
No.
Yeah, so it's okay. So it looked beautiful from when you took it over.
All we did was like install like some panels along the bar so we can remove the beige. Were you ever at Hugo?
No. But from the images, it looks pretty much similar.
Yeah. The bones of it is still the same. And so now this one is like, okay, how can we not be too far off and kind of somewhat similar in inspo in regards to aesthetics? I had this idea of like, man, it'd be really cool to just showcase a very awesome muralist in every shop that we ever do. And so this person, you know, I want to reveal the name, but nothing has been signed yet. She's great, and I hope she can take on the bid. Well, we should hear back from her by the end of the week. And then secondly, what else? We're doing right now, like I said today, after this, I'm going to Home Depot. I'm going to buy the flooring, give it to my contractor so he can install it. And then we have to build out the bar by the end of this. So my goal is end of May, early June.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So
that's exciting and overwhelming. Like my next location, I would love to do a build out, but like what was going on through your head to identify the cost of a potential build out?
Yeah. So I kid you not, like I try to keep everything as like low as possible because I know that there's going to be bigger expenses coming down the road, such as equipment. And so I'm so thankful that I have a team this time that is like looking at the numbers and being like, this is how much we're spending. It's less than 6 figures, so less than 100K.
Wow.
But the goal is we're close to it. Like I'm trying to reach at least 60. And the crazy thing is now, here's the other thing. And this is for any business owner or for any coffee shop owner, but like banks will help support small businesses. And if you work your numbers right and you're able to, you know, do the homework correctly, I think there's a way of doing it. So Allies of Community Business, they also helped Carolyn Crisps. We were a 2020 recipient. They gave us a really small loan. We paid it off. We're good. It was like $5,000. So now we're qualified to go up to 20 to 50 grand.
Okay.
And so like, that's the thing is like loans sound really scary, but if you have a really great accountant, you have a good cash flow and you know how to work your numbers, then that's like something you can think in your head and be like, yeah, I could pay that off in less than 6 or less than a year.
Sure.
So the money that we're taking out at this point, it's not necessarily, yes, it was from savings, but it's also at the same time, it's going to be met with some of our grants and loans.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gotta
but you have to like look at
money to make money.
Exactly. And you have to invest in it. When the moment I saw the space in my mind, I'm like, oh man, we're going to have to put a lot of money into this again. Like I have to go through this whole entire thing of like build out phase mindset.
So were you kind of looking for a second gen space?
Passively. I think kind of like the same intuition that I had for the first shop. It's all about location.
Yeah.
It's all that it makes sense. And I think this is manageable. And I think now that we're growing and we have all these other things that we have to cover, such as benefits, it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the right move. And I think I'm looking at the numbers from last year and the year before for Bucktown, and I'm like, man, it's going to take us maybe a few more years just so that we can be like, we're not stressing out about Bucktown anymore. You know, I think Bucktown is great,
Nice.
you know, and all that stuff. We're going in that direction, but it's going to take time. So what else can we do in the meantime? And obviously with mobile services, That's also growing, and that's always consistent. So now it's like, what else can we do? How far can I really push the envelope with the capabilities and stuff like that in regards to scaling?
Is it to the point where you need storage space for these carts?
Yeah. So the funny, cool thing is the second shop has a basement. So now we're my hope is that we can use the basement as our kind of like our private lab and or also like our private storage for events.
Okay. They're still collapsible, but that's still probably hard to go up and down.
Yeah, they're lightweight though.
They're lightweight.
Okay. And so there's that. The equipment we will right now it's stored at the Bucktown location, so we just travel with the truck that we have. So we're just like,
I've seen that truck. It's nice.
Yeah,
it's a nice truck.
It? Yeah. Well, so fun. We're gonna repaint it. It's gonna be lavender and it has a different sign. We only have one truck, so everyone's acting like, man, you drive around like you had three around. You know, like, no, that's just my driver. He lives in that neighborhood. He lives in that block. You know, so it's cool. I think it's very advantageous to have like your own personal company vehicle, because man, that you going to U-Haul, that adds up.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, I think so we're at that point where everything we can start having our stuff stored in our own shops, and that's kind of like the goal. I just really want to try to make everything all in house, and I can have a place to work out of sometimes. Like I can jump around, and so yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then are you going to kind of take a step back from scaling per se and just get everything stabilized then?
Yeah. So I'm thinking after Shop 2 launches, kind of like just see the landscape. Summer is going to be popping. It's going to be summer. It's just night and day in compared to sales. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Winter is cool and fall is cool, but when it's nice weather, like how we had it on Friday, man, I felt like it was.
And then
like
it snowed the next day. I'm like, what the
I know. It's like, geez, Louise. So all that to say is, I think that yes, we're excited. After Shop 2, then I could settle down. I can like look at some things that I want to do personally, you know, like you're married and all that stuff. I'm ready to kind of like settle down and kind of look into that direction after Shop 2. I'm the type of person that likes to deal with something like one thing at a time.
How do you do that? Because I feel like most entrepreneurs have a million ideas going on and they're like, I want to do it all.
So I joke around that I think that there's a difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. And that might be a hot take, but the entrepreneur is always thinking about the next thing, and they're always thinking about the next thing. But a business owner is also somebody who can sit and stick with what they just worked and deal with for a limited amount of time. And shout out to Elazar, who is the owner of Cafe Jumping Bean.
Oh, okay.
And he's been managing 2 shops for the past, I don't know, since I was a kid, you know?
Okay.
And so, I mean, I look up to him in such a way where I'm like, man, I kind of want to do that, where as long as we could keep it local. And that's my biggest fear, right? Is like, when you have multiple shops, the thought crosses your mind, is this really local, or is this like a franchise? Is this, you know, what is this? How is it? Who owns it? Right.
Yeah. I've had that conversations about with restaurants as well. It's like, how do you continue scaling while maintaining that charm?
I believe it's through just the more visible and more connected you are as a business owner, like just being able to be intentional with the customers. If I'm able to sit at the shops and say hi to a few people that already recognize me. I talked to another coffee shop owner who has 4 locations. They're out in the Chicagoland area, and I picked his brain because I'm like, what is that life like? And he's like, well, you're now at a capability. Once you have more than one shop, you're now kind of like, you have more bandwidth to do a lot of good things with your employees, the benefits and all these things. But now you get to show that you're not just a small business, but you're like a medium business. And that's still a good thing to keep, because now you can now stay authentic. The customer won't experience getting to know the owner behind the bar as much anymore. But if you're intentional with them in unique ways, whether that's through this or that's through events and stuff like that, then I think that, you know, you still keep that authenticity within your brand. And that's I would hope that nobody can think that Thrd is like a huge, like owned by somebody, whoever. Like, no, man, it's Chicago native, go Cubbies.
What's that shop on Foster and Clark. I used to go there all the time.
Foster, La
Colombe.
La Colombe.
Are they local?
So they are, if I'm not mistaken, they are not anymore. They've been bought out.
Oh, wow.
They've been bought out by, I don't know if it's been Pete's or it's just like a big juggernaut.
Yeah, that or like, or a Phil's, you know, it's just like,
I don't know about Phil's.
Who's Phil's? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like, I don't know if Phil's is like a chain now, but like,
Right.
it's,
I think they're based out of LA though. I don't know.
yeah,
Correct
West,
me.
yeah, something
Got
like
it.
that.
So I don't know. I think personally, and this is where it comes back to like a lot of the role models in my life, my grandpa, of like, how do you be a family man? And so for me, I choose I would love to, again, not be super busy and have time for family.
Yeah.
Family's a big thing. I just want to be able to be around the communities that I'm involved in, and not have to make Third Coffee my only baby.
Yeah. I was gonna ask like if there's anything else after maybe your personal life gets resettled with family and stuff that you want to participate in.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool. I know we joked around like maybe having a podcast one day. Take some do some hot.
Well,
controversy
similarly
shots.
to how Francis extended the hand, it's like if there's someone that you felt like you wanted a recorded dialogue with, take over the
Dude.
podcast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll keep. We could do like, what are those controversy walkouts? Use that as your catch filler. All right, bye. So I think there's that. But I think I don't mind doing some guest speaking stuff or just being able to help and be a consultant. I really like my freedom. That's the beauty. They always joke around like you got out of your 9-to-5. Now you're 24/7 as a business owner.
It is and it isn't, right? It's like
Right.
it is, but if you let it, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so for me, it's kind of like, cool. I just want to make time for the things that matter the most. And yeah, come through a coffee shop and say what's up. And obviously my other form of community are my baristas. Like, shout out to the team. They're just really killing it. I learn a lot from them. Nadia is really killing it. The manager, she wants to have her own shop one day.
And what's interesting is like, what do you think Nadia's shop's going to look like? And it's like,
Yeah.
when you set out on this path, you had something different in mind, something just for you. And it's just like, I wonder what that is for them.
Yeah, definitely not as colorful. Not as colorful as the way that I've had mine. I think they want to do it more. Nadia wants to have more specialty, more coffees around the world.
Can you get more Okay, so you can get more specialty then?
Yeah. So the coffee that we have, we're on a rotation. So what you're drinking now, we won't have for another, actually spring is coming up. So our spring roaster is coming up. And so that's ways that we can pivot. And so right now I'm looking at some roasters, from like the Midwest, Wisconsin. And so, so for her, she's the one that's like really tasting these coffees, allowing me to taste them. And I'm like, yeah, this one's mind blowing. I like it. There's certain brands that I haven't heard from. It's funny enough, back in the day, I used to always be that type of customer. I'm like, man, I'm from Chicago and this coffee shop has a coffee roaster out of Indianapolis. Why can't we get some Chicago love in here? And then I realized that in the Chicago market scene, there's micro roasters, but like there's like the big popular brands that are in the Chicago area. And it's just like, man, it's all the same to me. Like when I taste it, I just think, I'm like, man, it's like I'm not drinking.
Like despite where the beans are coming from, the roasters are doing the similar things to each other.
No, I think it's so that's a good catch. It's more of the blends, right? So like a regular coffee shop that isn't as savvy about specialty, they're just going to stick with their house blend. And the house blend is the same house blend that they would have at that roaster's site, that roaster's shop. I don't want to mention any names, but all that to say is that I think I want to be different. And I just was like, cool. I know I love Chicago. I love the coffee roasters here in the city. People ask me, why don't I have this particular roaster at the shop? And I just was like, you can have them at their shop. We'll do a retail. We'll do something like a collaboration down the road. We'll do a seasonal thing. We did one with one roaster last year. Metric, shout out to Metric. They're really great people. I met Darko when I was first starting this stuff out. And I bought a lot of his refurbished equipment to use for the shop one. And so I called them. We have great relationship, and they used our cart, and they did like a little cool pop up. Those are ways that I can see us doing collaborations and stuff like that. But yeah. So I just think like I'm trying to be different and trying to have different. And it's unfortunate that we kind of I have to break my own Chicago rule and be like, yeah, kind of let's see.
Well, do you ever want to bring roasting in house then?
Yeah, that's a whole nother beast. I don't know.
Sure,
And I'm going to be completely transparent.
And would that allow you to be as seasonal? I don't know. As you are.
You're probably right on that. I think maybe that'll probably be down the road once we have multiple more. If we ever choose to have multiple.
Is CPG
accounts.
worth it? You know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe it's worth it at volume. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, I know when to do something, and I'm like, man, I don't know about this one, and I think that's going to take time. If there's anything that I can admit that we lack in, or I don't think we lack in, but room for growth is potentially exploring that route of like roasting, and I'm not too familiar with that process.
Well, I mean, but it'd be full circle back to Tradecraft. It's just retapping those accounts, you know.
100%. And yeah, so little by little, if there's anybody that's watching this and they want to, hey, you know, create your own coffee program at Thrd, you know, hit my line. But yeah, so like I said, when looking at everything back full circle, for me, it's just prioritizing relationships, friends, family, to be accessible for all my loved ones, and not necessarily feel like I want to be. That to me is what success it means, is like having my family and all that stuff.
It's good.
You know, just try to stay.
You have that realization before it's too late.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. Eventually, we'll see where it goes. Maybe create Fourth Coffee.
What is? How's the girl? I'm sure the girlfriend's so supportive in this journey. It's just like, are they entrepreneurial as well? Yeah. Shout out to Mireya. We're gonna have a date night and just watch this podcast. Oh. You know, we did that. We did that for Keys to the Shop. She's awesome, man. She's really great. I think that she does PR. Okay. And she's from Wisconsin, and we just met at a friend's party. And we're going in like 7-8 months now. Okay. I'm not a dog guy. I'm not a dog guy. And she has a corgi. Oh, okay. And it's Palomita. And I've grown to adore Palomita a lot. And so I think it is so good. And some of my colleagues would say this, is that when you're in a relationship, man, you have time to escape, you know, from the everyday things. You can just settle down. You can enjoy with just going to concerts or traveling with your partner and all those things. And I love that I have that. I've had to, relationships were never in my favor, but, I'm very thankful that this is a good time for me to do that now. Because again, when you're building something, there's a lot of time and investment and mental energy. So like, how long did it take you to realize that your work is not your complete identity? I knew that from the very beginning when I first started. It sounds crazy, but I always try to remain realistic in saying that Thrd Coffee is never going to last forever. It's always going to be, when I first started it, to year 2 when it was Omicron, and year 3 when I opened shop, I'm like, there's going to come a day when these doors are going to close. And what if they live beyond you? Yes. Mentally, for me, like in my life, they're going to close. So I don't know what that means. Could I sell the business, whatever that looks like? But I know that it's never going to be like, I have to learn how to hold it, but with an open hand. Oh, wow. Hold it with an open hand. Yeah. It's very mature. Yeah. Shout out to my uncles. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that was a hard thing for me, because there is a lot of other things that I've held with the tight hand. And when it was, when it was not in my favor, I was just like, man, this sucks. Like, I can't believe this happened to me, or like taking L's, you know what I mean? And so I think when you are so attached to one thing, such a strong way, that if it's not in your favor, because life happens, how do we cope with it? How do we work with it? How do we react to it? And I think that Thrd has become such a huge component of my life now, that I have to remind myself, man, like, what if one day, like, yeah, maybe I'm ready to, put what's that saying? Hang the gloves up, and whatever that may look like. And I have to be okay with it. I know myself when I didn't have Thrd, and sometimes I was always bored in life, and I'm just like, man, I want to do something, Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, I don't know when I have to think about my exit strategy,
you'll hear that as business owners.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have an exit strategy.
I mean, God forbid I get hit by a car as I walk out of here.
Yeah.
And how does my co-founder take over? How does my wife take over? Does my wife do anything? It's just like for the business, like she can't teach an EMT class. Like,
Yeah.
like how do you transition?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't have that exit strategy.
No, I don't
yet.
either. I'm just saying, but
It's
like,
true.
shit like that can happen.
It can. But I can say though that I'm enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning from people that have, I would love to be in a room with business owners that have been doing this for like 10, 15, 20 years. At first, when I first started this, I felt it was very isolating.
Wow.
There was no 26-year-old that did this at that time that it was during the pandemic. And it was really hard for me to figure all that out. And I'm very thankful now that I have built this relationships with a lot of people that I know the right people that I can go to for guidance and all those things. But yeah.
Okay. At this point, is there any particular person or people that you're seeking validation from? And another way to put it is like, who would you be happiest about to see walk through your doors? Like, have your uncles or aunts ever come through from Bolivia or even from Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago, Bolivia. It's tough, right? But I think I've had family from that come into the shop. I think sometimes they get so, I have a huge gap age with some of my aunt and uncles that like for them they wouldn't like know what to do.
Or even Cam, Cam, like your buddies from
there's been some folks from my college that come by, high school teachers,
that is cool.
High school teachers, principals, and I'm like, yeah. Even former employers, and at high school former employers that like have unfortunately fired me and all these things, but like that was like high school back in the day. And so I made it. Yeah, like charge tax. Nah, just like but no, so I think it's been cool. Yeah, I think I'm pretty content, man. I love when I come by the shop and I just see people enjoying it. I feel like I got my grandpa within me where I just like to sit down and just people watch and just be like, man, everyone's enjoying the vibes. This is what I was always like that when I was before Thrd. I just hosted a lot of gatherings in my place. And so it's really cool to see people just enjoy it. And I not only want the customers to enjoy it, but I also want the employees to enjoy it. I know that you connected with one of your someone from another episode of the Filipino-Cuban restaurant. He said something. He says something that I completely agree. It's like you want them to enjoy it, you want them to have a good time, less turnover. We do something where if there's a barista that chooses to opt out, from Thrd, we always do like a staff happy hour, and we're celebrating you. Like,
good. Wow.
Even if you felt salty here, which I don't think there has been anybody that has felt salty, but like I just want you to like let's just celebrate you, enjoy the times that we've had with you. Yeah. And so we all go to Remedy, the bar next door, and we're just having a good time, and then it's kind of like a fun strategy exit interview is like, what did you really think? And then so it's just building that culture for them and building that relationship.
That's probably one of my favorite aspects of being an owner, as well as like cultivating a culture that they want to come back to.
Yeah.
Like we no one is pretty much full time on the instructor staff, and they all have their own fire department roles or they're medical students, or this isn't their full time, and so and then some of them are nurses where they're making much more than what I can afford to pay them, and so like what is incentivizing them to continue to come, and but like you said, like every time we have a busy summer, it's like trying to celebrate the team and just give back. Whether it's like the graduation gala as well, like that last year, might cost the same, if not a little bit more this year, but around $37,000 to be on the 99th floor of the Sears Tower. Wow. But we had like a string quartet and catering and open bar, and all the instructor staff can bring like a +1 and stuff. So it was fun to just but it's rewarding for them, because if they get to see the students graduate and these students work with them on an intimate level, it's rewarding all around.
No, I'm in total agreement. And man, that's That's crazy. EMT, man. I never thought I wouldn't have expected you to get into that wheelhouse.
Oh, me either. I fell backwards into it. It was supposed to be a stepping stone, as it is for a lot of our students, to go to med school.
Okay.
Out of all the entry level positions, like you can get this license in a college semester, and sometimes quicker depending on the program. And you're gaining paid patient care experience as an EMT, and hopefully informing yourself on whether med school or nursing school, PA school is something you want to do. And along the way, opportunities opened up, and you like it so much that you go to the next level, which is paramedic school, and things happen. Forks present themselves to you in the road. Forks in the road present themselves, and you might have to make a hard decision of like, do I walk away from med school? Was I even good enough for med school? Do I enjoy paramedics so much that I stick to this? And then another fork, like, oh, here's a teaching opportunity. And then you just keep following that path, and you're towing the line between survival. Hopefully you get to thrive mode instead of survival, and then towing the line of like, is this something you really want to do? And a lot of that stems from not just what you do, but who you do it with. And so this podcast was born at a time when I felt burnt out teaching the class, because I left the ambulance life. I was making more money through teaching and being an anesthesia tech at Northwestern. And I gave up I was at Cicero's fire department. I was making $13 an hour, and you're tied up for 24 hours. So it's like, if you're single at the time, I had 2 dogs. It's like, who's going to watch my dogs? I can't pay. I couldn't even afford a dog walker, for 2 dogs.
Cicero, in the town Cicero?
Yeah.
Oh, where are you from?
I was born in Skokie.
Okay.
But raised in Palatine. Like Schaumburg area.
Gotcha.
So
Woodfield Mall.
Yeah, exactly. Northwest suburbs. But I did a lot of my growing up post college. So
nice.
Like 25 to 28, 29, definitely like found my way, and came into myself.
Are we the same age?
I'm 35.
Oh, okay.
Next week's my birthday, so I'm turning 35.
Early birthday.
And I'm telling you, it's the best decade so far, the third decade. And I every time I meet like a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, I'm like, is it getting better every decade? So far, yeah, it is. Because hopefully you're wiser, and you have more resources at your disposal, and you can really make what you want out of this life. You know,
I like to say that when you manage a business or I think any milestone, whether that's marriage or owning a home of some sort, it should character develop like you should be more mature in that, because you're learning so much after. I think when I look back at when I started this to now, I'm like, gee, man, that's crazy.
It's cool to hear you say that, but I also realize that you grew up a lot sooner than most. Imagine if you didn't kind of get back on a path that led you to success,
right?
And you kind of stayed stubborn and hard-headed, and you didn't listen to your aunts, uncles.
No, that's a good point. That's a good call out on that for sure. Man.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the support system is there, but at some point you have to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no, you're right. A lot of those decisions, you kind of have to be at that point where there were times where I can see where I was like, man, do I want to stick with this? Like, there's times where I wanted to pull the trigger in opening the shop, and my sister, I said that in the other time, she was like, hey, you're in no rush. You're in no rush. What's the rush? And I think there'll be a better opportunity that'll open up. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. At the end of the day, it's like, it's the decisions you take. And that will definitely, make you who you are for sure. Yeah.
Have you, did you ever get to reconnect with your dad? Is your dad still in and out of your life?
Yeah. Or? So, he actually, unfortunately, he passed away back in 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he passed away. He had a very heart failure, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And we, did a funeral for him. And, what was really compelling was that he had, there was 2 sides. There was my mom and myself, our side, and then there was like personal friends and the people that were on this side, and it was very empty. But then on my side, I brought all my friends and family and my loved ones, and we all just like took up that space. And I just, I gave a eulogy, and I spoke nothing but good things in a way that I just was like, man, you know, for me, that's where it kind of was a breaking point of like, okay, man, like I just closure, you know, and at the end of the day, I would want to, just be like, man, you know, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But I'm sure maybe it took a minute for you to get to that point,
100%.
you know, it's like, but I guess I was wondering if you got to have that conversation with him after having that realization from their siblings in Bolivia of like, this is like seeing your photos in Bolivia.
No, we didn't, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't, unfortunately, get to have that conversation, unfortunately, during that time. But I remember when, you know, he was in the hospital and he was just like, man, he was, you know, he was very vulnerable. First time I've ever seen him very vulnerable as a man who was very tough. And yeah, he kind of like, I could tell like he kind of came to that realization. It's like, man, I'm sorry. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, like it's all good. It's all like, just rest up, you know? And you know, I was trying to be optimistic and be like, when you get out of this, you know,
we'll catch up. Yeah,
we'll catch up.
We'll make up for lost time.
Absolutely. I was at that point in my age where I'm like, you know, a little bit out of sight of like having that father relationship with somebody. I was more of like, that's cool, you know. So when that happened, I just was like, okay, I want to handle this correctly and honorably, and with anybody, you know, under these circumstances. And we're going to talk about what this man was and what I realized who he was perceived at back in Bolivia and as a good man and all these things. And so, yeah, it definitely is it was like a big pivotal chapter in my life for sure.
Of course. Oh man, that's amazing. Is there anything you want to share about the mugs on the...
Yeah.
Like, do you have an artist, a ceramic artist friend, or like?
Yes. So if you go on our social media, we are. You would see that we've done like our videos, bits for a little bit about the shop, some little things. So this was made by Ari Mugs. Her loft is actually based out here in Pilsen. And she works in corporate, but on her free time, she likes to do some ceramic mugs and plates. So, I was coming into when I was building out the shop, I'm just like, there's something missing. We need something, and other than just the traditional white mugs. What can we do? And then I just thought, like, why can't we go just do some ceramic mugs? And I know that there were a few shops that do ceramic, so I was like, okay, I don't want to look like I did a copy and paste thing. I kind of want to figure out how we can have our own little twist to it. And so she picked some of the colors that I thought would embody Thrd. And so we use these to make our in-house drinks. So I brought 2 of the same color because I wanted to gift them to you.
Oh, wow.
For you.
Thank you.
And your wife.
Wow.
And so there's that.
She's going to love it.
I know. You guys can have like little coffee dates.
What kind of drinks? Like more than just espresso or?
Yeah. So good observation. So we have different sizes. This one's kind of like they're all like close to accuracy. This would have been like your cappuccino size. It's an 8 ounce. This one's a little bigger, so this is probably a regular latte. It's listed as 10 ounce, but we put it in.
That's
like
so cool.
Ounce. Yeah. And then when you come to the shop, like we try to somebody gave a really great review, and it was a really great observation, and I love that they talked about it. They posted it on LinkedIn. They said that in the rise of having a coffee shop, and like there's these crazy prices. One of the reasons why they feel like we're doing something ahead of the ball game is by one, the mugs are curated locally, and 2, you come by the shop, you get free cereal. And so, yeah, so if you're like you're not feeling the price on the cup, on the drinks, like, hey, like, let's have some free cereal, and you can like understand and be like, oh, okay, like at least, I get to have some perks in the shop here,
Yeah.
When you come into the shop, you'll see some cards, cue cards,
okay, of
like, hey, kind of like house rules. Welcome to the shop. If you love it, give us a review. If you love us even more, follow us on IG. The bathroom's in the back. If we're running out of toilet paper, hit us up. Let us know.
This is all in the card?
It's all in this card.
So
it's
cool.
Very detailed. It's just like little things that I think like, I'm like, man, we got to figure out ways to be subtle with it just so that we could be a little bit more unique and considerate.
Okay.
And so like these mugs were an example of that. People are stealing them. They're asking if we can have some for retail. And I was like, I told him, man, low key, honestly, no offense, but it takes literally like 3-4 months for her to make a batch. So I said, I was like, you know, right now she's working on the set for the shop too.
Wow.
And so please don't steal them. It's in the card. It's like, don't steal the mugs, please. They're expensive. And we're a small business, yo.
I'm sure you've brought it up to her. Like, what a compliment. And like, I'm sure she'd be with when the bandwidth opens up to like make some for retail.
Yeah. So we did a video bit on her because everyone asked us like, hey, who is this? And so she has a little video bit on her socials. We try to do a video bit for a little bit of everybody that we work with, we partner up with, so that everybody could hear their story and see what they're doing.
That's the best thing about this podcast is like this gained appreciation after hearing someone's backstory.
Yeah, I try to not. I'm glad that I could get onto these type of things so that you get to know who Raoul Adwan is, right? Instead of like I tried to make Third more for the customers, more for the workers, the staff, everybody that's there. And I just like to, work behind the scenes because I know what I can do out front. And I just was like, I'm good. I think I'm glad. But this is really great too, because I'm like, man, this is really cool to get to know a little bit of the background, inside stories. And then it's awesome.
How lucky are we to find people that cares as much about the work as us, as
Absolutely.
you do? Yeah, absolutely.
I followed some of the channels, some of the interviews, and man, it's always the solid people. And like I said in the beginning of the interview, I'm like, man, it's an honor to be here, and just being able to hear other people's stories, and from even people that you've interviewed from the back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So
thanks for doing the digging.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's awesome.
It's a love letter to Chicago. It really started as how do you do this and how do you do that? Like, how'd you become so great? More so now to like, well, why do you continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
I don't really care, because I wanted to learn how to maybe get a foot in the door in various industries, but now I feel pretty settled in my journey. And I want to create things that are adjacent to emergency medicine and education, rather than trying to stretch myself too thin. But that being said, I always enjoy hearing these stories, and there are parallels and similarities through an entrepreneurial journey. Selfishly, I get to walk away with, next time I go to Third, like, I'm going to get some cereal. I'm going to share, your story with my wife. She listens to every episode too. It's just like, we just have this appreciation for the movers and shakers of Chicago.
I love that. No, it's it's awesome. I love Chicago. I love the show The Bear.
Yeah.
Get to see some of those businesses get highlighted. Yeah. And
one of the last artists, Danielle from Monsoon Pottery, like her pottery was in a 10-second clip because awesome. JV from Giant has some of her work.
That's cool. Giant. I've been meaning to go in there and taste some of the food there. So but yeah, I think it's one of the narratives that I love to try to have is like understanding, it's unfortunate. Like, we always see like these like unfortunate news about staffing and management and all those things. It's always trying to change the narrative and just being like, okay, let's not dwell on let's learn from it. And how do we be better? And so I tried, one of the things we try to do at Third is like creating that culture. And then I think it's cool to show that there's like some Chicago natives that are in the city that are like, hey, they're doing stuff here other than just moving out or having people that come into the city and live and then create a business here, That's cool too. I just think that, man, it's a beautiful thing when you see something like a good, healthy, next generation planted in the city.
You know what also happens when you're so transparent about your journey is like, hopefully people that might want their own coffee shop realize how much work goes into it, and you're like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I thoroughly enjoy being behind the bar and just doing my thing, and just like, and you give them enough wiggle room to be fulfilled and creative. But like things like HR and payroll and accounting and taxes, it's like, I don't know, it's not as romantic every time.
Yeah, I remember when I first started, I was like, man, what if I just try to simplify everything? What if I just try to keep things, like, hey, you could pay me straight to my direct deposit, right? And I kid you not, like, it starts from the moment you try to build an LLC. They ask you, do you have a business bank account? And
Yeah.
you're like, dude. And then now you have to get the EIN, articles, and all these things. And it's like, now you're legit, and now you're part of the system, and now you got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
And man, if someone told me about taxes, I would have been like, nah, I'm good. I thought at first when I started the business, I was like, yeah, I'm balling. Like, oh snap, I'm making moolah.
Oh yeah, they're gonna get their cut.
No, and then I just was like, damn. Like at the end of the, what is it? Tax season, I'm no longer excited anymore.
No,
I
know. And I just want to make it. I was like, I got another year down. It's like,
yeah. I think you don't hear it from like the older generation, but like you and we're millennials, you know, and I'm like, I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. And I'm like, damn, like this is not fun anymore. But I think it's like, again, it goes back to the having the right accountant, having the right
that's
the way
true.
cash,
if you build teams,
you get a healthy team. Shout out to like I said, shout out to the team. They're really taking care of a lot of things that it's a privilege where I'm able to enjoy a lot of things. I remember I used to wake up early in the morning, having to get to do the things I had to do like 5 a.m, and now I get to wake up like a normal, decent day and see, okay, everything's all good in the hood. And man, it just goes back to finding the right place and the right people.
Yeah. If someone's not already following you or Third Coffee, where can people find you guys?
So you can find us on Third Coffee, THRD Coffee Co. on Instagram, Facebook, and then you can find us LinkedIn. You know,
the company or you?
You can find it both.
Oh, nice.
LinkedIn. That's always a cool spot. That's a highly recommend if you guys are doing stuff for corporate clients. Create a LinkedIn presence is a good way of doing that. And then you can find us on all those social medias. Websites, thirdcoffee.com.
Perfect. Simple enough.
Oh yeah.
Wow, what a journey! You're like I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate it's so wise at such a young age. You know, when you had that realization, and then you get to pass it, pay it forward essentially, and hopefully people just heed that advice. You know.
Hey man, I'm just trying. It's hard out here, and I think like I'm trying to. I'm curious how things are gonna be going forward as a nation, and like man, like. Prices are gonna continue going up, you know, and we have something on the menu. When you come into the shop, you see drink menu, and then in parentheses it says if you can't see it, you need glasses, because it's so huge in your face. And I almost want to change it and be like, if you're upset about these prices, like look at the news or like what's going on nationally. You know, and it's just like you highlighted something that I do want to say is that you said third place, and I think that our mission behind Third is always, you come in and you are able to just be at peace. You're able to vibe out, enjoy the drinks, and remove yourself from the noise of the world. Encouraging you to engage in those conversations and do everything you got to do. But for myself, and I tell this to the staff, is like I saw a sign that was so compelling. It says, "We have the power to make their day better." And so I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I just want to remove you from all the noise that's going on outside the world and just come into this place and enjoy it. That is the only and obviously empowering the baristas to speak on any issues or whatever those things. But as a company, like I just want to be that third place and like not part and allow everybody to just feel at peace and calm. And I mean, every business owner has the power to do whatever they want to do with their business. I just think like when you think about long-term picture and trying to model and having right people around you to decide what you want to talk about as in the name of your business, it can be a little
it's
scary.
like, how controversial do we get,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just personally was like, try to make sure. And for me, I'm like, I can be very opinionated. And so I can speak on my personal pages and stuff like that. But it's a tough avenue to tackle as a business owner today. We're a coffee shop. We want to serve you coffee. We're not trying to change the world. But again, just trying to help and create a good, healthy space. And yeah, I think it's just a tough thing to tackle in this place like Chicago. And just like as a coffee shop,
Yeah, I mean, especially in the recent years, you wouldn't have thought that Chicago is as controversial as it is. You would think it's definitely more left leaning, but like within the
100%.
recent years, like, damn, it's actually kind of split.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm like, man, this is like literally like I am a sponge, and I'm just, what did I say? I said this one time to my girlfriend. I said to her, cause she was in the politics scene. She used to work for a few politicians. And I said to her, you know, I want to be known for somebody who stayed focused on the mission, on what we can do as a business, even in the midst of all this. We did that during the pandemic. We do that now, and we can show what we're all about in the midst of all this stuff. And I think that is like such a true, like, I think I don't want to be distracted, stop what we're doing, and boom, I want to show our work and be like, hey, like, there's some good things that are coming out of this mess, you know, out of this like dark times, out of the scary times, and I want people to know that there's hope, right? You know, and I think that's one of the biggest forefront, especially in this season right now. So
Cool. I agree.
Decaf, love you guys. Those who love decaf.
Oh yeah, is it making like there's a wave of decaf happening?
I don't know. I was just like, there's like that whole connotation is like, oh, you love decaf. I'm like, yeah, man, people have heart conditions too. You know? It's like, oh, love over there too.
Okay.
But yeah, man.
Raoul, like I said, if you ever want to come back or you want to host someone else, you feel free to take over. Just let me know.
I appreciate it.
I'll be a fly on the wall, and then yeah. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Till next time, we'll see ya.
Thanks, guys. Peace.